by congressional staff in this deposition. Do you understand?
I do.
If at any time you knowingly make false statements, you could be subject to criminal prosecution, including but not limited to perjury. Do you understand?
I do.
This includes both knowingly providing false testimony, but also stating that you do not recall or remember something when in fact you do. Do you understand?
I do.
Furthermore, you cannot tell half-truths or exclude information necessary to make statements accurate. You are required to provide all information that would make your response truthful. A deliberate failure to disclose information can constitute a false statement. Do you understand?
I do.
Is there any reason you were unable to provide truthful testimony in today's interview?
No.
Please note that
You sure about that?
if you wish to assert a privilege over any statement today, that assertion must comply with the rules of the Committee on Oversight and Government Reform. Pursuant to that, Committee Rule 16C1 states, for the chair to consider assertions of privilege over testimony or statements, witnesses or entities must clearly state the specific privilege being asserted and the reason for the assertion on or before the scheduled date of testimony or appearance. For the purposes of the deposition, objections must be stated concisely and in a non-argumentative and non-suggestive manner. If the witness refuses to answer a question to preserve a privilege, the committee may seek a ruling from the chair. If the chair overrules any such objection, the witness shall be ordered to answer. If the witness continues to refuse to answer a question despite being ordered to do so, the witness may be subject to sanction. Do you understand?
Insofar as I understand the rules of privilege, I don't have any specific knowledge of your committee's ideas of privilege.
Understood. Ordinarily, we take a 5-minute break at the end of each hour of questioning, but if you need a longer break or a break before that, please let us know and we will be happy to accommodate. However, to the extent that there is a pending question, we would ask that you finish answering the question before we take a break. Do you understand?
Yes.
Finally, I will note for everyone here today that the contents of what we discuss in the deposition is confidential under the House Deposition Regulation. Under the rules, the chairman and ranking minority member shall consult before any release of testimony or transcripts, including portions thereof. This means it is a violation of House and committee rules to disclose content of the deposition prior to its official release. For this reason, the marked exhibits that we will use today will remain with the court reporter so that they can go into the official transcript, and any copies of those exhibits will be kept at the table or returned to us when we wrap up. Can the court reporter please swear in the witness?
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this deposition will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Do you have any other questions before we begin?
Yes, I have an opening statement that I would like to deliver before we begin.
I just want to point out that she has been officially sworn in, and everything that she says from this point forward is under oath. What's up, everybody? What's up, McDougal? What's up, Lemon? What's up, Envy? I see a couple other people that are watching. Feel free to engage in the chat.
Mr. Chairman, ranking member, members of the committee, as a former United States Senator, I have respect for legislative oversight, and I expect its exercise, as do the American people, to be principled and fearless in pursuit of truth and accountability. As we all know, however, too often congressional investigations are partisan political theater, which is an abdication of duty and an insult to the American people. This committee justified its subpoena to me based on its assumption that I have information regarding the investigations into the criminal activities of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. Let me be as clear as I can. I do not. As I stated in my sworn declaration on January 13th, I had no idea about their criminal activities. I do not recall ever encountering Mr. Epstein. I never flew on his plane or visited his island, homes, or offices. I have nothing to add to that. Like every...
All right, I'm sure you guys can't wait to hear what she has to say. But I just want you to think about what she just said, just for a second, okay? Because her husband was the president of the United States for 8 years. She was a senator, Secretary of State under Obama, and they have been dominant in the political world for decades, And now that we understand, who this guy was working for, working with, and all the affiliates, and just how intertwined they all were, for her to say that she had no idea about any of the criminal activities, I mean, that would actually be scary if it were true, wouldn't it? Like, think about the level of national security risk if the Clintons had no idea about any of this criminal activity while kids were being, and everything else that went on behind the scenes, the money, the whatever. We'll get into more of it. I just wanted to point that out real quick because like that's just like what a way to come out swinging. That's one thing you got to hand it to Hillary for. Like this woman has balls. Like this woman has balls. Like to come out like
person, I've been horrified by what we have learned about their crimes. It's unfathomable that Mr. Epstein initially got a slap on the wrist in 2008, which allowed him to continue his predatory practices for another decade. Mr. Chairman, your investigation is supposed to be assessing the federal government's handling of the investigations and prosecutions.
She didn't think it was disgusting enough to not have Ghislaine go to Chelsea's wedding. Remember, there are pictures that were taken after 2008 of Ghislaine and Chelsea, if I'm not mistaken. So keep in mind. Also, by the way, I also got Webb over here too. So maybe at some point throughout this, we'll take a little break and we'll load up some of this transcript into Webb and we'll see if we find anything interesting. And I'll be doing this in real time too. I took off, like when I say I took off the last 2 days, I took off. I wasn't doing research. I wasn't prepping. I checked my emails. A couple of you said that you wanted me to cover this. So here we are. Live reaction. The only piece of this that I've seen so far was the Pizzagate clip. That is it. So let's go.
Of Epstein and his crimes. You subpoenaed 8 law enforcement officials, all of whom ran the Department of Justice or directed the FBI when Epstein's crimes were investigated and prosecuted. Of those 8, only 1 appeared before the committee. 5 of the 6 former attorneys general were allowed to submit brief statements stating they had no information to provide. You have held 0 public hearings, refused to allow the media to attend them, including today, despite espousing the need for transparency on dozens of occasions. You have made little effort to call the people who show up most prominently in the Epstein files. And when you did, not a single Republican member showed up for Les Wexner's deposition.
I'm going to point it out every time they do this. Every time they try to bring up Republicans and Democrats, I just want to point it out because, like I say, it's all WWE. That is theater for us. That is to help keep us arguing amongst ourselves and to give us heroes and villains. It's all BS, okay? Nobody's getting prosecuted. It doesn't matter if you have a Republican in office, a Democrat in office. Nothing's happening. There's no accountability. So please, I hope nobody's buying it.
Deposition. This institutional failure is designed to protect one political party and one public official, rather than to seek truth and justice for the victims and survivors, as well as inform the public who want to get to the bottom of this matter. My heart breaks for the survivors, and I am furious on their behalf. I have spent my life advocating for women and girls. I have worked hard to stop the terrible abuses so many women and girls face here and around the world, including human trafficking, forced labor, domestic violence, and sexual slavery. For too long, these have been largely invisible crimes or not treated.
Show me the cases. Show me the cases. Show me any instances that you were doing anything to stop trafficking and sex slavery, as you just put it.
Treated as crimes at all. But the survivors are real and they are entitled to justice. In Southeast Asia, I met girls as young as 12 years old who had been forced into prostitution and raped repeatedly. Some were dying of AIDS. In Eastern Europe, I met mothers who told me how they lost their daughters to trafficking and did not know where to turn. In settings around the world, I met survivors trying to rebuild their lives and help rescue others with little support from people in power who too often turned a blind eye and a cold shoulder. If you are new to this issue, let me tell you, Jeffrey Epstein was a heinous individual, but he's far from alone. This is not a one-off tabloid sensation or political scandal. It is a global scourge with an unimaginable human toll. My work combating sex trafficking goes back to my days as First Lady. I worked to pass the first federal legislation against trafficking and was proud that my husband signed the Trafficking Victims Protection Act, which increased support for survivors and gave prosecutors better tools for going after traffickers. As Secretary of State, I appointed a former federal prosecutor, Lucy DeBaca, to ramp up our global anti-trafficking efforts. I oversaw nearly 170 anti-trafficking programs in 70 nations and directly pressed foreign leaders to crack down on trafficking networks in their countries. Every year, we published a global report to shine a light on abuses. The findings of those reports triggered sanctions on countries failing to make progress, so they became a powerful diplomatic tool to drive concrete action. I insisted that the United States be
Does anyone else feel like when they have these testimonies and when they give these speeches that it's all about just putting things on the records for the textbooks? You know what I mean? Like, this isn't for us. They know that we don't buy this. But in a couple of decades, when we're all gone and our kids and our grandkids are, learning history in school, they're going to be reading these transcripts. Like, that's what they're going to be reading in the textbooks, is what's on the record, what's official. Who's writing the books? Who wrote our textbooks? Like, guys, don't forget, Robert Maxwell, Ghislaine's father, the person that recruited J.E., he was the one responsible for the publishing of the majority of the textbooks that in the American public school system. Like, do you understand the level of the indoctrination? You understand, like, what I'm talking about when I say that if they control our reality, that they control us?
included in the report for the first time ever in 2011, because we must hold ourselves not just to the same standard as the rest of the world, but to an even higher one. Sex trafficking and modern slavery should have no place in America. None. Infuriatingly, the Trump administration gutted the Trafficking in Persons Office at the State Department, cutting more than 70% of the career civil and foreign service experts who worked so hard to prevent trafficking.
Okay, now she's saying that, in addition, Trump cut all the jobs of the people that work so hard. Yo, he cut the jobs in 2024. The people that worked so hard, what? Like, when were they working? When all this was happening? When these thousands of people were working so hard to stop this? Yet Hillary's claiming that she had no idea that it was ever going on? Like, I don't know. Am I the only one that, like, listens to this? Like, it's kind of reminding me of the Zach and Finance video the other day when everyone's watching it and they're all like, oh, wow, this is great. This is amazing. And I'm just like, it's like when I hear what people say and I watch these videos, I don't just listen to them. I pay attention to what they're not saying. I pay attention to the underlining meanings. Like, I don't know. I think maybe just, ChatGPT and using it for research for so long and it being so crooked that it kind of just like calibrated my brain in a way that, like, when I see things and I listen to things, I am constantly reading between the lines and I'm paying more attention. It's like I got this automatic highlighter in my brain that's just highlighting everything that they're not saying or things they don't realize that they're saying, which she just did.
Trafficking crimes. The annual trafficking report required by law was delayed for months. The message from the
what's
Trump
up, Pitsy? I
administration
see
to
you.
the American people and the world could not be clearer. Combating human trafficking is no longer an American priority under the Trump White House. That's a tragedy, it's a scandal, and it deserves vigorous investigation and oversight. A committee endeavoring to stopping human trafficking would seek to understand what specific steps are needed to fix a legal system that allowed Epstein to get away with his crimes. A committee run by elected officials with a commitment to transparency would ensure the
And guys, notice that we only have 15 viewers right now. You know what's crazy? And we're going to get to this. I'm not going to go on a long rant. But the last couple of days, all right, those 2 days, I streamed like 3 times. I put in like a total of, I don't know, maybe 8 or 9 hours on live stream. And in that time, I got like almost 300 new subscribers. And then I put out a video, and that first video that I put out, the first day, it only got like 150 views. So how is it that I'm getting more subscribers in a day than I'm getting views for my videos? But I kind of tricked the algorithm a little bit because I posted a little video of one of my clips, and I mashed it up with the Candace Owens one, and it was very short, but that one cracked 10K. So that was cool. Maybe I'll have to, pull some stunts like that to get the things up. But I'm just finding it very interesting how no matter how many followers I get, no matter how many subscribers I get, no matter how many thousands of people are following me on social media, man, when I go live, just no one seems to get their notifications. No one seems to tune in. It's like, what's going on with that? And guys, don't go around. We're going to have to find another way to promote it because apparently some people are getting a little upset when you guys comment in the chats. But that's another story.
The full release of all the files. It would ensure that the lawful redactions of those files protected the victims and survivors, not powerful men and political allies. It would get to the bottom of reports that DOJ withheld FBI interviews in which a survivor accuses President Trump of crimes. It would subpoena anyone who asked on which night there would be the wildest party on Epstein's island. It would demand testimony from prosecutors from Florida, New York, and the Department of Justice about why they gave Epstein a sweetheart deal and chose not to pursue others who may have been implicated in his crimes. And it would demand that Secretary Rubio and Attorney General Bondi testify about why this administration is abandoning survivors and playing into the hands of traffickers. It would seek out advocates and law enforcement officials on the front lines of the fight against human trafficking and ask them what support they need. And it would put forth legislation to provide more resources and force this administration to act.
Yo, you know what the crazy part is? Pitsy, I just saw your comment. I have the playback speed at 1 1/4. So to like speed it up. I'll try to speed it up a little bit. I don't want it to get too much. But yeah, see? Imagine I had it at regular time and she's talking even slower. It'd be freaking miserable. Maybe that's the point. Maybe she just wants to have this like long bullshit opening statement that it's like hypnosis for the people that are going to ask her the questions. You know, like she's just going to like put them to sleep or just get their cognitive functions all thrown off course so they don't hit her with the right questions or they're not prepared for the rebuttals.
But that's not happening.
Straight out of the
Instead,
Michael
you compel me
Aquino
to testify,
playbook.
fully aware that I have no knowledge that would assist your investigation in order to distract from President Trump's actions and to cover them up despite legitimate calls for answers. If this committee is serious about learning the truth about Epstein's trafficking crimes, it would not rely on press gaggles to get answers from our current president on his involvement. It would ask him directly under oath about the tens of thousands of times he shows up in the Epstein files. If the majority was serious, it would not waste time on fishing expeditions. There is too much to be done. What is being held back? Who is being protected? And why the cover-up? So my challenge to you, Mr. Chairman, and members of this committee is the same challenge I put to myself throughout my long service to this nation. How to be worthy of the trust of the American people that they have given to you. They expect statesmanship, not gamesmanship, leading, not grandstanding. And they expect you to use your power to get to the truth and to do more to help survivors of Epstein's crimes, as well as the millions more who are victims of sex trafficking in this country and around the world.
And now just remember, you see how before she was talking about how Trump needs to be investigated, that his name comes up tens of thousands of times in the files? When did his name get put in the files? Think about the dates. Because again, her husband was president for 8 years. She was Secretary of State. She has close ties to the Obama administration, the person that was president before Trump. She ran against Trump. So how could Trump's name be in there tens of thousands of times and them not know in 2016? How would they not know in 2020? How is it possible that they were prosecuting Trump for all these clerical errors? Remember the 38 felonies? They brought him into Georgia. They did that big photo op. But meanwhile, he was already in those files. If it was real and they really wanted to prosecute him and they really wanted to go after him and they really wanted to destroy his reputation and make sure that he never ran for president again, they would have released the files. They would have leaked it. It's just all bullshit. It's all bullshit. I don't know how anybody is falling for this anymore. It's like crazy to me. It really is. It's insane. It's insane.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I would also like to request that the video of this deposition be made available within 24 hours, as it has been for other witnesses.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. The time reads 11:34 a.m. The majority's time will begin now. Madam Secretary, in the interests of efficiency here today, I'm going to ask you one question followed by a list of names. The question can be answered yes or no. If you do indicate yes to an individual, I will come back and revisit that at the end. The question is, have you ever communicated with any of the following people relating to Jeffrey Epstein or Ghislaine Maxwell? Richard Kahn,
No.
Darren Endyke,
No.
Sarah Kellen,
No.
Doug Band,
Not that I recall.
There we go. There's the first one. Because remember when she had that private server, the whole email scandal? There was an email in there of Doug Band emailing Hillary Clinton basically saying that you shouldn't have had Ghislaine or shouldn't have Ghislaine at Chelsea's wedding. That is on the record. That's why she's saying, not that I recall. Because she knows that if she can't just say no, and then if she says yes, then it opens up a can of worms. So it's like every time that she says, I do not recall, or I don't recall, not that I recall, you got to like put a highlighter there and be like, okay, like, is it really something that she doesn't recall? Or is it she just is trying to make sure she doesn't perjure herself? And now, as for the other names, notice Doug Band was a Clinton aide, worked for the Clinton Foundation or Global Initiative, one of, both of, I don't know. But all the other names, why would they have direct access to Hillary to begin with? It seems like the other names that they were naming, they wouldn't be messaging Hillary directly. They would be messaging somebody like a Doug Band. So even the phrasing in the question is off. They should be asking, actually, they should really be bringing in Doug Band. I mean, they can't bring up Mark Middleton. We all know why. But they should be bringing up Doug Band. They should be bringing in the people under Hillary, asking them the questions. The people like her gatekeepers. Those are the people that you bring up first. You get them on the record because they're the ones that would be doing the interactions and planning the meetings and setting everything up. You know, you basically you got J.E. and Maxwell on this side. You got Hillary and Bill over here, but then you got all these people that work for them and work through them in between. They would be the ones communicating and setting the meets. You're not gonna have these people just directly. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
Lawrence Summers.
No.
Huma Abedin.
Have I ever talked to her about this in preparation for this hearing? I have.
Outside of that,
Not that I recall.
Again, not that I recall. Are you guys taking notes? Are you making a list? I need somebody in the chat. I need somebody making a list of every time she says, not that I recall. We might need that in a little bit.
Noam Chomsky.
No.
Leslie Groff.
No.
Nadia Marcinkova.
No.
John Luke Brunel.
Too early
No.
for a
I
drinking
don't know
game.
most of these people. Should I tell you that I
Yo,
don't
one of
know who
these
they are?
days.
Just tell you I never talked to them.
Just so you never talk to him, it's fine. Alan Dershowitz.
No.
Kathy Rumler.
No.
Bill Richardson.
No.
George Mitchell.
No.
Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, formerly Prince Andrew.
No.
Peter Mandelson.
No.
Reed Hoffman.
No.
Karina Shuliak.
No.
Bill Gates.
No.
Ehud Barak.
No.
Woody Allen.
No.
Sandy Berger.
No.
Jess Staley.
No.
Paul Morris.
No.
Guys, is it wrong that I'm really enjoying this right now? Like every time I hear a name and I hear her say no, I get like this little fuzzy feeling in my stomach. Is that messed up? Is there something wrong with me?
Leon Black.
No.
Sultan Ahmed bin Sulayam.
No.
Leslie Wexner.
No.
Jack Kessler.
No.
Mark Middleton.
No.
Harvey Weinstein.
No.
Ellie de Rothschild.
No.
Ariane de Rothschild.
No.
Lynn Forrester de Rothschild.
No.
Any other members of the Rothschild family?
No.
Yeah. She looks like she's starting to crack. Like obviously we know she's not going to crack, but you can tell that there is a different level of pressure under her with this particular case than there is the other times that she testified. Like I remember watching her testify in the past, and she's like got her hand like this, and she's like rolling her eyes, all cocky and shit, because she knows that she's bulletproof. And now it's like you can tell she's not really that sure. You know, like the stakes are higher. There's a lot of these are a lot of names getting brought up. These are a lot of names getting brought up. And she's putting on the record that she has never spoken to any of them about J.E. I don't know.
Glenn Dubin.
No.
Eva Anderson Dubin,
No.
Casey Wasserman,
No.
Larry Visoki,
No.
David Rogers,
No.
Ira Magaziner,
No.
Daniel Gilbert,
No.
Karen Ewing,
No.
Stacy Plaskett,
Not that I recall.
We got another one, guys. Take a shot of espresso.
Howard Lutnick,
No, not that I recall.
Back to back. Yo, I'm gonna every time she says "not that I recall," I'm gonna pause it.
Steve Bannon,
I don't know if I've ever met him. You all have to introduce me.
All right, I guess she didn't want to say "not that I recall" 3 times in a row.
I take that as a no.
Just to be absolutely clear, you've asked if I've ever communicated about Jeffrey Epstein, a man I never met, with any of these people, most of whom I've never heard of.
Okay, she just officially said on the record, "a man I never met." All right, just remember. Look at her face. She actually has like an oh shit look on her face. Like, oh man, did I really just say that? Did I go too far? How many pictures are out there? She said, "a man I never met."
And certainly not met. That's the premise of your question.
Mr. Epstein or Mrs. Maxwell.
You did not say that.
I did say that in the beginning. I will repeat the question.
No, that's okay, but I didn't talk about her with any of these people either. I
Understood.
barely knew her.
David Gergen,
No.
Elon Musk,
No.
Abigail Johnson,
No.
Jeff Bezos,
No.
Larry Page,
No.
Sergey Brin,
No.
Louis Freeh,
No.
a new member arrived. Would they please introduce themselves for the record?
Wesley Bell, Congressional, Missouri First Congressional District.
Thank you, sir.
Can I understand, could you read back the initial premise of your question, because I too did not hear?
Yes, ma'am. Have you ever communicated with any of the following people relating to Jeffrey Epstein or Ghislaine Maxwell?
I didn't hear the Maxwell piece, but we could ask her. It doesn't matter. It's the same answer, but I did not hear the Maxwell name in there.
Understood.
Okay. Now she's changing it. Okay, now she's saying that originally all those times that she asked the question, she's muddying the water. That's what she's doing. Because now if she gets caught lying, she could be like, oh well, remember I said that I thought they were only talking about J.E., but I guess it doesn't matter. Okay, so you're gonna tell me that Ghislaine Maxwell was at your daughter's wedding, and I'm sure a lot of these other names were probably at the wedding, or at least you were in contact with. You're going to tell me that none of those people ever said to you, if any of them were at the wedding as well, that they didn't say, who's that? You know what I mean? Like, she's not recalling, like, she's not even saying, I don't recall on that. She's saying a hard no. And remember, Ghislaine hung out with Chelsea. Like, they were friends. They were close. This isn't like they might try to pass it like, oh, some kind of like just within a social sphere, social vicinity, you know, like, oh, so she was just, you know, there because it was like a big crowd. No, that was like a close friend of hers, allegedly.
So was the last name you said Larry Page?
I'm Sergey Brin.
The last name I stated was Louis Freeh. You indicated no. Is that correct?
I think you need free?
Free. Yes, ma'am.
Louis
No.
Free.
No.
And Sarah Kay.
No. And these are all, to the best of my recollection, as I say, many of these people I've never heard of. Most of these people I've never had a relationship with, although I know their name. Some of them are deceased. But I was not communicating about Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, as I understand what you're asking me, contacting people about them. That did not happen.
Is there anyone that you had a conversation with about Ghislaine Maxwell?
Oh, I'm sure I've talked about Ghislaine Maxwell, and especially in preparation for this hearing.
And outside of conversations with your counsel, what did you talk about Ms. Maxwell?
I don't recall any conversations about Ms. Maxwell, but I knew her casually, so I can't tell you that I never had a conversation that mentioned Ghislaine Maxwell's name, because I don't recall that.
Understood. And you say that you knew Ms. Maxwell.
What is that, like 7 times she said it already that she don't recall? Yo, they should like, I don't know. That term gets abused in these things.
Well, casually, what does that mean?
Just what I said. I knew her primarily as someone who dated someone that I knew,
And who was that individual?
Ted Waite.
And who was Ted Waite?
Ted Waite was a successful, as I recall, software developer.
And roughly, when would the first time Miss Maxwell would have come up in relation to Mr. Waite?
I don't recall, but, perhaps sometime around 2010, because he was invited to my daughter's wedding and she was his guest.
All right, guys, I'm going to stop pausing it when she says I don't recall, unless it's a big one, or else we'll be here all day. Like, literally, we'll spend more time on pause acknowledging the I don't recalls than we'll spend watching the testimony.
Have you ever spoken with Miss Maxwell personally yourself?
I'm sure I have, yes.
Did you estimate on how many occasions?
Not many. I didn't see her very often.
When would the first occasion have been?
I have no recollection.
Did your first interaction with Miss Maxwell occur while President Clinton was President of the United States and you were First Lady of the United States?
No, I do not recall ever meeting her while Bill was still in the White House.
Did Mr. Waite ever inform you what Miss Maxwell did for a living?
Not that I recall.
Did anyone ever indicate to you what Miss Maxwell did for a living?
Not that I recall.
Pitsy, we would have died of alcohol poisoning already.
When would the last time have been that you either communicated with Miss Maxwell, even if not directly yourself, but been around Miss Maxwell?
The best of my recollection is at the wedding in 2010.
Would you consider Miss Maxwell a friend?
No,
Would you consider her a friend of President Clinton?
he'll have to answer that.
Would you consider Miss Maxwell a friend of your daughter?
She probably was friendlier with her than I was because I didn't see her very often.
How often would your daughter have seen Miss Maxwell?
You notice that? Notice as soon as she answered that question that the lawyer put a piece of paper in front of her? Bumpers. It's like bowling with the bumpers.
I have no idea. But again, it was in the context of her being in a relationship with Ted Waite.
Anyone else in your family have a relationship of some kind with Miss Maxwell?
Well, that's my family. You asked about Bill and Chelsea.
And just to make clear for the record, have you ever met Jeffrey Epstein?
I do not recall ever meeting Jeffrey Epstein. In preparation for this hearing, I was told that he attended an event at the White House that was put on by the White House Historical Association. But I have no recollection of that.
Chat, do me a favor. If you believe Hillary Clinton's testimony, put a 1 in the chat. If you think that she is completely full of shit, put a Bezos based in the chat. Just one time for me, please.
And only that one time at the White House Historical Association?
That's the only time that I'm aware of that I might have possibly been in the same room with him.
Did you have an initial impression of Mr. Epstein?
I have no recollection of Mr. Epstein. I just told that he was in a room at a dinner that we were hosting for the White House Historical Association.
What was your understanding of what Mr. Epstein did for work?
I knew nothing about him. He was there as an invited guest by the White House Historical Association. That's my best recollection.
And no one else informed you of what Mr. Epstein did for work?
No, but we had hundreds and thousands of people who came to the White House. I was not informed of what people did or didn't do for work, especially someone that I never even had a conversation with.
Do you know who invited Mr. Epstein to the White House?
I can only tell you what I know, which is that he apparently was a guest invited by the White House Historical Association to attend a dinner to thank people who gave money to the White House Historical Association for the upkeep and maintenance of the White House. That's what I was informed of.
Oh, she
in
definitely
preparation
practiced that
for,
one in the
coming here.
mirror.
Yes, ma'am. And understanding we focused the last few questions on your time in the White House with President Clinton. After that time period of President Clinton's administration, did anyone ever tell you what Mr. Epstein did for a living?
I don't recall ever talking about Mr. Epstein. He was not on my radar. He was not somebody that I had any connection to.
So you mean to tell me that all these years in politics, all these years at the top of American politics, the top of American intelligence, that nobody at any point in time ever went up to you and said, hey, Hillary, you know, there's this guy I should warn you about, especially because his partner, who's an agent and whose father was one of the most notorious agents of all time, has been hanging out with your daughter. You know what I mean? Like, do you know who your daughter's going to lunch with? Do you know who your daughter's maybe getting a pedicure with? Like, do you know who her father is and what he did and who her partner is and what they're doing? Maybe you should know. You're going to tell me that nobody in intelligence, foreign or domestic, ever gave that call to Hillary or one of her associates. Like, hey, someone's got to warn her. You know, her daughter might be wrapped up with the wrong crowd. I mean, come on, think about it. When you're kids, if you're hanging out with the wrong person, doesn't someone like try to warn you or warn your mom or be like, hey, you know, that person that your kid's been hanging out with, they're bad news. You mean to tell me that one of the most famous and powerful couple in the history of America, that their daughter is hanging out with that? And nobody's saying a word. Nobody knows. You know, the FBI, the CIA, none of these intelligence agencies are doing background checks. They're not saying, okay, whoever's hanging around my daughter, I want to know who they are. I want to file on everybody. If I'm president of the United States or anywhere in politics where I have that kind of access, I want to know exactly who is around my kids. And you would think that would be protocol for just obvious national security risks, especially because remember, Ghislaine was born in France. Her father was a known agent, born in Czech, served in British Parliament. You know, went out under mysterious circumstances. Like, there are so many red flags around these people. You're going to tell me that the Clintons did not have files or did not want files on who was hanging out with their daughter? Who was at their daughter's wedding? Like, what about, like, you know what I mean? Like, what are we talking about? What do they expect us to believe? Did they really think that they put enough fluoride in our water to make us this dumb? Answer me, please. Chat. Come on. I'm not even asking for numbers. I'm not asking for Bezos based. I want opinions right now. You know, keep it civil, keep it nice. I'm already in enough trouble with YouTube. But, like, seriously, you know what I mean? Like, this is crazy. This is crazy. And notice I haven't said any bad words yet. And if I did, I don't recall.
When President Clinton was traveling with Mr. Epstein on Clinton Foundation business, no one associated with the foundation at that time discussed Mr. Epstein with you?
Not that I recall. I was not involved with the foundation. I was a senator from New York, and I was deeply committed to my work, and it became one of the most intense experiences of my life when we were attacked on 9/11. I was not involved with what was happening to create the foundation, to create the work that was done to get low-cost drugs for AIDS. I knew about the work. I didn't know about the details.
Understood. And to be clear, you never had any communication yourself with Mr. Epstein, whether that be face-to-face interaction, phone calls, emails, text
Ask it,
messages?
answer. You can answer it again.
I have no recollection in any way of ever having any conversation at the White House or in any other place or on any kind of device of any sort. I knew nothing about him.
And
I also want you guys to keep in mind that in 2010, the same year that Chelsea got married, the FBI flew to Australia to question Virginia Giuffre. They flew to Australia because they wanted to talk to her about the information that she had. And I believe that was even while Hillary was Secretary of State.
when did you learn of Mr. Epstein's 2006 indictment and subsequent arrest leading to his incarceration in 2008?
I have no idea. I was not paying attention. I was running for re-election in 2006. I ran for president in 2007, 2008. I don't know that I ever learned about it until much later when more things came out about it.
Understood. And when did you first learn of Mr. Epstein's arrest in 2019?
Probably when it happened because it was headline news. I'm sure I, like everybody else, saw it in the press.
And in seeing that in the press, did you discuss Mr. Epstein or his case at the time with anyone?
I'm sure we did because it was a, big story.
And Mr. Epstein died in custody following his 2019 arrest. When would you have learned of his death?
Whenever it was
Actually, no, he did not. No, he did not. I'm actually going to cover this tonight at 10 o'clock when I come back on, because I believe I saw the clip on the Jimmy Dore show. Shout out to Jimmy Dore. Freaking love that guy. He's one of the best in the business. But in the files, it says that J.E. had some sort of procedure to remove his prostate. And when they did the autopsy, let's just say that the autopsy of the person that was found in the jail that they said was J.E. had very, very conflicting information with the medical records that were found in the files, or evidence of medical records in the files, which pretty much makes it very clear that whoever that happened to in the jail was not J.E. And he was swapped out and is still more than likely alive today, living his best life.
reported.
Going back slightly a question, you said you likely would have talked to someone regarding his arrest in 2019. Who would you have discussed that with?
Whoever was around. I mean, it was a big story, as you recall. It was a very big story. I don't have any specific recollections. It wasn't something that I was particularly focused on, but it was a big story.
And going back to Ms. Ghislaine Maxwell, when did you learn of her arrest in 2021?
Again, whenever it was reported as happening.
And did you discuss that with anyone?
I'm sure I did. It was another big story.
And who would those discussions have been with?
I don't have any specific recollection.
So moving forward in time just a little bit, you were Secretary of State under President Obama, is that correct?
Yes, it is.
And it was during his first term, 2009 to 2013?
That's correct.
And after you completed your time as Secretary of State, did you return in any role to the Clinton Foundation?
I did. I became active in it at that point.
And by being active in it, could you describe that for us, please?
Tried to support the work that Bill and my daughter and the team had done, and look for ways to be helpful. It was something that I wanted to make sure I could support.
And please correct me if I'm wrong. You rejoined as a board member, is that right?
It may have been the first time I was a board member. I don't remember. Either the first or the second time. Yeah.
And speaking of, it sounds like you were heavily involved when you returned to the foundation, or I guess started with the foundation at this point, in trying to accomplish those goals and initiatives. What were you doing, broadly speaking, on a daily basis, monthly basis, that sort of thing?
Well, I wanted to start a program about early learning for kids, and so we started something called Too Small to Fail, which I was very actively involved in with my daughter, and we worked with pediatricians and other people to help parents, grandparents, aunts and uncles read, talk, and sing to their children so that they could help build brain cells. That was a major priority of mine, and I'm very proud of what we've built and the difference that it's made in millions of kids' lives.
Yo, can you imagine the balls on her to talk about how she's proud of the difference that she made in the lives of children? Like, what a evil, evil person. Like, really, really evil.
Certainly did what I could to support the work that we do overseas through the Clinton Global Initiative, which has had a terrific track record of bringing people together to work in partnerships, to make commitments, to try to improve everything from, clean water to solar energy to improved education, all of the priorities that the partners we have bring to us that we try to help them with.
And thank you for that, Madam Secretary. We've had a few members join us. Would you guys please announce yourselves for the record?
Yes, Pat Fallon, 4th District of Texas. Scott Perry, connected with the Pennsylvania.
Thank you both.
Did you hear the last person?
Mr. Perry, Scott Perry.
Thank you, George.
And Madam Secretary, as a board member, what type of responsibilities does that entail?
Oh, attending the board meetings, approving the agenda of work for the year, the budget that goes with it, that kind of responsibility.
And you mentioned the Clinton Global Initiative. Just for clarity, I will likely refer to that as CGI as we go forward with this. CGI is a part of the Clinton Foundation. Is that accurate?
Yes.
And what was your role with CGI at this time period, right after you left being Secretary of State?
It was, again, to support the staff that put together both the annual meeting, but also worked during the year with our partners who'd made commitments to help them fulfill their commitments. So, if there were a meeting about a commitment that was made to get clean water to some very remote place, if there were a meeting, I might be invited to it to meet with the partners to encourage them. It was mostly around the work that happens throughout the year in preparation for the annual meeting.
And forgive my ignorance, please. What happens at those annual meetings?
The annual meetings are a way for people to come together to make commitments that they have previewed with our staff. So I'll give you an example. Probably around, I don't know, somewhere between 12 and 15 years ago, I don't know specifically, Matt Damon, the actor, came to the Clinton Global Initiative because he said he really cared about clean water. And could we connect him with people that he could work with to get more clean water in more places in the world? So we did. We connected him to this gentleman who was a real expert on clean water. They started working together. They created something called water.org, which was a Clinton Global Initiative commitment that was made at the annual meeting. And then our staff worked with them. And I think it's fair to say that, they've been one of the most successful organizations in actually delivering clean water. But it's that kind of work. It's people who might have a good idea. Maybe they've got some resources. Maybe they have some experience. I'll give you another idea. So Procter & Gamble called us and said, one of our scientists, one of our chemists in the UK, has created this packet of chemicals that can literally make the dirtiest water clean enough to drink. But we don't know what to do with it because we're a consumer company that sells products to middle-class people. This is something that would go to the very poor. What do we do with it if we come to CGI? Can you connect us with somebody who can help us? So we connected them with World Vision, and I think maybe one or two other organizations. And so they used the packets to literally go around the world cleaning water. And Bill went with them, Chelsea went with them, and they would go to rural Myanmar or rural.
If any of them go down, they're all going down. That's why I say they're like the Million Musketeers, all for one for all, and anyone that's expendable is gonna get expended. like you know what I mean? Like nobody's going to jail. Nobody's going to jail. Very, very unlikely. And just so you guys know, because I know a lot of you guys are members to Danks as well, and that is my boy. I just texted him to find out what time he's going live. I'm going to be streaming a lot today. I have somewhere to be later, but I'm only going to be gone for like 2.5 hours. So I'm going to be streaming most of the day. And then when Danks is on, I'll probably be in his chat hanging out too. So don't worry, guys. It's going to be a long day. The next couple of days, you're going to be able to see a lot of me. So
Kenya, and they would take this bucket of dirty water and they'd dump the packet in, and then my daughter and my husband would drink it to show that it was clean. And that was a CGI commitment. We bring together governments, local, state, national, businesses, philanthropies, NGOs, academics, anybody who has a good idea that we can help them work on and try to fulfill. That's what we do.
And thank you. The Clinton Foundation started shortly thereafter your husband, President Clinton, left office. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And CGI started a few years later. Is that right?
I think that's right. I think it started maybe 2005, maybe?
Good
I'm not
call.
sure.
And does CGI or the foundation more broadly perform any work in sex trafficking or human trafficking around the world?
There may be partners who make commitments about that. We have thousands and thousands of commitments, so I can't answer yes or no, but it might be an area that some of our commitment makers would be focused on.
And how did the foundation, the Clinton Foundation, how did that idea come to fruition? Was that your idea? President Clinton's idea?
Oh no, the Clinton Foundation was all Bill's idea. He set it up as he was leaving the White House. It was the entity that raised the money to build the Clinton Presidential Center, and then to carry on the work that he wanted to do. You know, shortly after he got out of the White House, he and Nelson Mandela were asked to come to the annual AIDS conference to see whether the two of them could do something that needed to be done, which was to try to stem the epidemic of HIV/AIDS. And so Bill started out trying to figure out how to deal with this problem and came to the conclusion that the best way would be to lower the price of the drugs that were being used in the United States but were too expensive to be used around the world in order to treat more people. And I really give huge credit to both Bill's idea about how to do that, but also huge credit to President George W. Bush, because when President Bush took Bill to Pope John Paul's funeral in Rome, he and Bill were talking because President Bush was coming forward with the PEPFAR program. And so he and Bill were talking, and
Oh, shoot. Look who it is. We got Kelly Raybon in the chat. Everybody say hi to Kelly.
President Bush was very committed to this, and Bill was very committed. And so Bill said to President Bush, I now have generic drugs being made in places like India that are much cheaper than the brand name drugs, and you could, with tax money, treat many more people. And so President Bush, to his credit, said, yeah, but my folks tell me that the drugs aren't as good as ours. And Bill said, I'll give them to you, you give them to the FDA, you test them, and I'll abide by your test. I think you can ask him if you want tomorrow, but I think he gave, I don't know, like 24 drugs, and the FDA approved 22, and President Bush was as good as his word. And so we began as the United States and the Clinton Foundation, because of that connection and that partnership, we began treating millions of people with low-cost drugs with federal PEPFAR money, saving millions of lives. Sadly, that's going to be reversed because of the...
Is anyone else noticing the emphasis she's putting on with her and Bill's tight relationship with the Bushes? Just want to point that out there if anyone's not noticing that.
attitudes of this administration and the cutbacks, but it was one of the great services to humanity. And I give President Bush and I give my husband.
Guys, also, for all of you that watched that live that I did with Kelly and Blake and Danks, we will be doing that again on Saturday. And we have something special for you guys. So get ready for that.
Enormous credit for doing something that wasn't going to get them headlines, wasn't going to get them, some kind of, statue put up, but was saving millions of lives, preventing mother-to-child transmission, preventing, people from dying. So that's what he was doing.
And thank you for that. Did Mr. Ban?
And love and compassion, you're 100% right. Like, you notice when these people, they try to hammer home points and repeat it over and over again and put a lot of emphasis on it because it's a manipulation tactic. They're trying to manipulate you. Notice what I do. When I'm trying to show you guys stuff, I'm not just trying to tell you. I'm not just trying to argue. I'm not just trying to shove it down your throat. I'm putting emphasis on what they say. And I'm putting emphasis on what they're not saying based on what we know. And just letting you guys open your minds and think about it for yourselves.
Ban play a significant role in helping set up the foundation initially?
Yes, he did.
And when CGI was initially created, whose idea was that?
It was Bill's idea. He went to Davos, and he called me after he'd been at Davos, and he said, a lot of interesting people, but they don't do anything but talk. And I have a better idea. Why don't we get people together? And yeah, they can talk, but they have to make commitments, and they have to follow through on the commitments. And we could have an annual meeting that would bring people who were willing to make commitments. And that was his idea, and I thought it was a really good idea, and I encouraged him to go out and see if he could put it together.
Are you aware of Are you aware of anyone else helping formulate the idea for CGI?
Oh, I think he talked to a lot of people. I couldn't tell you who, but he talked to a lot of people.
Did Mr. Epstein have a role in shaping the formation of CGI?
I have no idea. I don't know anything about it.
Did Ghislaine Maxwell have any role in shaping CGI?
I don't have any idea about that.
Man, I think we lost count of the I don't recall.
11, the interview between Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche and Ms. Ghislaine Maxwell from July of 2025. We'll get you all a copy momentarily.
Hold on. Let me look. I think I have something here. I got a cheat sheet, I think.
And I'm sorry, what was this exhibit?
This will be Majority 11.
let's skip a little bit. All right, they're about to ask if Ghislaine and J.E. helped
And on page
craft
263, Ms.
Clinton
Maxwell,
Global Initiative.
Tells Mr. Blanche that she had a role in shaping CGI. You said you were not aware of Ms. Maxwell having any role in
Remember, CGI is Clinton Global Initiative. Okay? Think stuff like Haiti.
shaping CGI.
I was not involved in the creation of CGI. Again, I was in the United States Senate. I was not involved in the work that was done to set up CGI.
No one discussed.
So she's saying that she was not involved with setting up her own Clinton Global Initiative that's in her name. But Maxwell is on the record saying that her and J.E. did. People that she's claiming that she never really had any contact with. She barely knew Ghislaine, some social settings. She may or may not have hung out with her daughter from time to time, but she does not recall. But as for J.E., she never met the guy. Like, that's what she's been telling us. She never met the guy, and they had a whole list of like 4 dozen, whatever. No, I'm not going to exaggerate. Like 2 dozen names, it seems like, or 12.5 names of people that she's saying that she never spoke to about him. It's like almost like she didn't know that he ever existed. That like anytime J.E. was around or anybody was talking to her, she was like, la, 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 la. But they were the ones that helped set up the Clinton Global Initiative. And she's like, I was working the Senate. I had no idea. I didn't even know they made it. I don't know how it came about. One day it was just there. But I'm very proud of all the work that we did. I'm very proud of all the work that we did for children. And the Bushes are great. And you really need to look at Trump because his name's in the files a lot. I don't even know what we're doing here. Like, that's what I'm getting from all this. Anybody else,
Discussed the formation of CGI with you.
That it was going to be set up, but I don't have any specific recollection of having any specific knowledge of it, no.
Did Mr. Epstein help craft the idea or formulation of CGI?
I don't have any idea. I don't know anything about that.
It shouldn't be off. Let me see. Are they up to their shenanigans
Is it possible
again?
that Ms. Maxwell had a role in creating CGI?
I'm not going to speculate. I'm here to tell you what I know, and I don't know anything about that.
Understood. And is it possible Mr. Epstein had a role in crafting CGI?
I'm not going to speculate about that either because, I have no way of knowing that because I have no direct knowledge.
I will enter now as Majority Exhibit 12.
My monetization is on, but I made it a point to put the ad frequency low because I didn't want you guys to get spammed with ads.
This will be a letter from Mr. Epstein's attorneys. I will give you a second for it to be passed out. This is a letter dated July 6, 2007. It is from Gerald B. Lefcourt. He was an attorney for Mr. Epstein. He sent this to the prosecutors in the Southern District of Florida. That would be Sloman, Minchell, Lori, and Villafania. And I will direct your attention to page 21. At that top paragraph on page 21, it says, quote, Mr. Epstein was part of the original group that conceived the Clinton Global Initiative, which is described as a project bringing together a community of global leaders to devise and implement innovative solutions to some of the world's most pressing challenges. Again, is it possible that Mr. Epstein played a role in crafting CGI?
I have no idea what he did or what he said he did, and I have no way to testify to the veracity of either. I was not involved.
Have you seen this?
Come on. Come on. Look at her face. Look at her face. It says it all. Her face right here says it all. Come on.
Document before?
No.
The Clinton Foundation accepts donations as part of carrying out its work. Is that accurate?
Yes.
And when seeking, let me take a step back. People charitably provide donations to the foundation?
It's a 501c3, yes.
And do you or anyone else at the foundation?
It's a 501c3, yes. That means that when people donate to that foundation, they get to write it off on their taxes. That's pretty convenient. If you got a lot of money, if you make a lot of money and you need some write-offs, need some way to avoid paying taxes. You know, just donate it to the Clinton Foundation. You know, she didn't start it. She was working the Senate. She has no idea how it started or what was going on with that. You know, she didn't realize that it was Ghislaine Maxwell and J.E. that may or may not have started it. And she can't testify to the veracity of those claims, even though that Maxwell put it on the record. But a lot of people probably donated a lot of money to write stuff off on their taxes. And I'm sure it had nothing to do with any alleged pay-to-play allegations. And I'm sure it had absolutely nothing to do with any of the stuff that went on with the files. You know, like, well, and don't even talk about PG. And when I say PG, I'm not talking about the rating of a Disney movie. I'm talking about, you know, the Ninja Turtles' favorite food. I don't even know what I could say anymore because, I mean, whatever. I'm not getting views anyway. I'm sure it had nothing to do with Pizzagate.
Ever solicit donations for the foundation?
I'm sure that happens. People talk to us, we talk to people, they ask questions about the work that's being done, and I'm sure that happened in the years before I was involved.
Did you solicit funds from Jeffrey Epstein for the foundation?
I had no contact with Jeffrey Epstein. I did not solicit funds from Jeffrey Epstein.
She didn't even know the guy.
Did you
She already
solicit
told you
any
that.
funds for the foundation from Ms. Maxwell?
I did not. Again, we're talking about the creation of the foundation. I was not involved in the creation of the foundation or the creation of CGI. In those early years, I was incredibly focused on my job in the Senate. Bill was focused on setting up the foundation and starting CGI.
And understanding you were occupied with your career as a senator and then your presidential campaign leading up to 2008, but at this time, were you discussing starting the CGI with President Clinton?
I'm going to object to any communications between the two of them. You can ask generally, but that's covered by the marital communications privilege.
Understood. So generally speaking.
I am sure that I talked to my husband about what he was doing to set up the foundation. It was more on the substance of the work. How many drugs was he getting made in India? What was the idea that was going to motivate CGI to be what he wanted it to be? It was not in the weeds. It was the concept. It was the excitement that he had about trying to establish the foundation and CGI.
And similar question for Mr. Band. Did you discuss the creation of CGI with Mr. Band?
I may have, because he was around. He worked for my husband. He was a personal aide to my husband, but I don't have any recollections of any specific conversations.
Yo, one of these days, I'm going to get every testimony that she ever did, every one of these depositions, every time she was ever questioned under oath, and I'm going to make a list of every time she ever said that she doesn't recall or any variation of the term, and we're going to get the whole list of those questions. And I think it's going to be shocking. Well, I mean, it's not going to be shocking for me because I've been watching this stuff for over a decade. But like when people see like just how many times she's used that word and the type of questions and the importance of those questions. And this is a person that was almost our president, by the way.
Broadly speaking, at any time, do you recall any discussions related to distancing the foundation or CGI from Mr. Epstein or Ms. Maxwell?
I don't recall any conversations. I know that sometime, maybe 2003 or so, Bill did not have any ongoing contact with Epstein. And in preparation for this hearing, it became clear to him that Epstein was not interested in the charitable work that was motivating Bill as he traveled around the world, getting people to commit to providing low-cost drugs for not just HIV/AIDS, but eventually tuberculosis, malaria, and other diseases.
And what is your understanding of Mr. Epstein no longer wanting to participate in the foundation's philanthropic goals?
Only in preparation for this have I been told that, there was no real interest there. And, there was no point in being involved or connected to him.
And we touched on this. Correct me if I'm wrong. You said you're not aware of Mr. Epstein donating to the foundation. Would you consider, let me back up. President Clinton took trips on Mr. Epstein's jet, is that correct?
Yes.
Would you consider offering a private jet as a donation in kind to the foundation?
Well, I don't know what the rules are under the 501c3 regulations, but it was certainly a gift, and he was, one of a number of people who provided transportation so that Bill could do the work he was doing.
This is like, every time I watch one of these, it's just insane. It's insane.
I think.
And it's disgusting
We
that our
touched on
country
this.
allows it.
Did Mr. Epstein end up donating to the foundation, or?
Like, think about it. How many people are in that room right now? Why? I don't want the camera to be on her the whole time. I want to see the faces of every single person. I want the faces. We already got the names, I believe, in the transcript of who was there. But I want the names and faces of every single person that was in that room. And I would like to ask them some questions about what they thought about this. Like they're just, like, this is crazy. Like I don't even know why we're watching this. Because we already know, it's like it's like funny at first. It's like, oh, they're gonna ask her about this. Let's see her reaction. But like when you really think about it, like, they're putting this on the record. There is a room full of people that knows that she is completely full of shit. We all know, and what's being done. What's being done? And that's the issue that like, that's what drives me crazy about a lot of this stuff, because. Everybody's good at playing the clips and getting the laughs, but there's never a call to action. There's never a call to action. It's always like, look what they did, right? Everybody's really good at pointing out the lies and what other people have done and what's wrong and who might be guilty and who's a suspect and what's wrong. But there's never a call to action. Like, what are we going to do about it? Like, it would be really nice. If some of these people that knew about this and had the influence and had the knowledge were putting out some kind of call to action, that weren't just good at identifying the problems, but they actually had a solution. And maybe that's something that I got to work on. Maybe instead of just focusing on what everybody else is doing wrong, maybe I should start putting my time, energy, and resources into solutions on how we could deal with this. Because something needs to change. Something needs to be done. And they're not going to do it. They're just not.
CGI?
I have no personal knowledge of that.
You're not aware of a $25,000 donation from Mr. Epstein's affiliated companies to the foundation?
Only what I was told was alleged in preparation for this testimony. I did not know about that, and I don't know that it's true.
Are you aware of the Clinton Foundation reviewing any records in regard to Mr. Epstein donating to the foundation?
I will have to ask our lawyers, because I did not.
Have you had any conversations about the foundation reviewing those donations made by Mr. Epstein?
I think I'll have to ask our lawyers. I don't know. I didn't review them.
Understood. Ms. Mace, did you have some questions?
I did. Thank you for being here this afternoon. In your opening remarks, you mentioned this is political theater and partisan. Do you believe the Epstein files are a vast right-wing conspiracy?
I think if they are fully released, as the Transparency Act requires, that would be fulfilling the responsibility of the Justice Department. But it appears that there have been many issues with the full release, so I'm not going to characterize it other than to say I think that's a well-known fact.
Are you aware that both the
You know what I want to see? I want to see all the files released, and I want to see all the 9/11 files released, and I want them cross-referenced. That's what I want. Get all the JE files, all the 9/11 files, and fucking cross-reference them. And let's see what lines up. Let's see what matches up. Let's see when some of these meetings with some of these people occurred and what policy came after. What pardons. What legislation. What connections. What assassinations. What money moved around. Who got paid. Who got set up? Who got hired? I want to see that timeline. I want to see that web. Give me a 1 if you agree, if you want to see it too.
Republicans and Democrats voted to subpoena you and your husband?
I am here.
Okay. Are you aware both Republicans and Democrats voted to hold you in contempt when you didn't show up?
I am here.
Is that partisan when both parties vote to do something together? Is that partisan or nonpartisan?
I think it's standing up for the institution, but there are many other aspects of the committee's work that strikes me as avoiding the main issues about who should be sitting here, who has actual information that might be useful to your investigation.
As a survivor, I'm a survivor. I appreciated your opening statement and your prioritizing some of these issues. Have you always believed this way? Have you believed this way for some time?
Have I what?
Have you believed what you believed in your opening statement for some time?
Yes, I have.
How long have you had those beliefs or held those beliefs in your opening statement?
Very long.
In 1998, you had those same beliefs?
Yes.
2005?
Yes.
2008?
Yes.
2012?
Sure.
2016? 2020? 2024 to present day, you've held these beliefs the whole time?
Yes, I have.
Have you always believed that women abused by powerful men should be believed?
I know where you're going with this, and I have nothing to say about anything in the past. I'm here to answer questions about this investigation.
So do you believe that women who are abused by Epstein and an Epstein circle of associates should be believed?
I think that many of them have made very credible accusations.
Have you always thought that, do you think that women abused by powerful men should get justice?
I think that they should have their time to be evaluated, and where there is adequate evidence, they should certainly get justice, and perpetrators should be held to
The
account.
question was, have you always thought that women abused by powerful men should get justice?
Yes, absolutely.
I agree. Are you aware that, you were aware, I think you said this earlier, that Jeffrey Epstein was convicted in 2008 for procuring a child for prostitution and soliciting a prostitute, correct?
That's what the charges were, yes.
And you were aware of that in 2008?
I don't recall that I was aware then.
And in
Yeah, she doesn't recall that she was aware then. She had just lost the primary to run for president against Obama. She had a lot going on. But I want you to think about this. If Chelsea got married in 2010, was she hanging out with Ghislaine in 2008? Something to think about, right?
2008, you were a U.S. Senator still.
I was.
Would you say that Jeffrey Epstein is one of the world's most prolific sex traffickers?
From what we know, he certainly engaged in his predatory activities for a long period of time.
Would you say he's one of the world's most prolific sex traffickers?
I don't know what to compare it to. There are terrible sex trafficking rings all over the world.
And you said you were Secretary of State from 2009 to 2013. And you state your agency prioritized combating sex trafficking internationally, correct?
That's correct.
During your time as Secretary of State, did you or the state receive any intelligence cables or briefings mentioning Epstein's foreign travel, pedophile island, or his network of pedophiles and sex trafficking?
Not that I am aware of, no.
How did you miss it? If he's, I believe, one of the most prolific sex traffickers in the world, you were Secretary of State. How did you miss it?
Well, that would have been a matter of the Justice Department, not the State Department.
But in your opening statement, and your statements earlier in your opening statement, you stated that Secretary Rubio should be called to testify. And you said that he has, and the administration has, quote, abandoned survivors. Using the same logic, you were Secretary of State during a time period after Jeffrey Epstein was convicted of being a pedophile and soliciting children for sex. Why then did you, quote, using your own logic, abandon survivors?
What is the question, please?
I followed her comment. First of all, we focused on whether there were laws that made sex trafficking, sexual slavery, domestic violence, other abuses of women on the books in countries. And then we tried to evaluate, were those laws being implemented? And were judges appropriately trained and briefed about how to implement those laws? Were governments taking them seriously? We looked at the broad institutional approach to these very serious abuses.
Would you say the U.S. government at that time, during this time period, was appropriate with the way that it handled Epstein?
I don't think that you could say that was true about any of the government's prosecutorial efforts, starting with the Southern District of Florida and Alex Acosta and all those who basically gave him a sweetheart deal. And then I think going up the chain, there was very little attention paid that should have been paid. But we had laws on the books. They were not being implemented. But that was not within my purview, because what we were looking at is what's the institutional structure, and can we do more to make sure countries take it seriously? Our country had laws on the books.
So
this man was not held to account.
It was not in your.
Isn't it amazing, like, how they get away with this, though? All this look the other way bullshit. I didn't know. I wasn't looking. I was busy over here. It's like, listen, accountability needs to start at the top and trickle down. There's way too much passing the buck in this country in order for them to pass the bucks. But accountability needs to start at the top. If the organization has your name and you are the main representative of that organization and you are the benefactor in any way, then it shouldn't be, oh, I didn't know. I mean, I have other people deal with that. It's like, no, motherfucker. Like, that is you. That is you. That's not the I don't know initiative. It's the Clinton initiative. Yes or no? Like, I'm so sick of this. I'm so sick of this. No accountability. There is no accountability. It starts at the top and it trickles down. Could you imagine if every household in America was run like this? It would be a bigger disaster than it already is. Kelly, thank you for the super. That is very kind. All right, Kelly Raybon, she says, who let anyone come to their wedding, especially that high profile with Secret Service, etc., that they don't know at all? You'd think they'd background everybody. People don't get to just bring a +1 to something that highly vetted. Yes, Kelly, you are absolutely right. And we were actually discussing this before you came in. We were saying the same thing, that there's no way. Her husband is president for 8 years. She is Secretary of State and involved, like one of the highest ups in the Obama administration. All these long political ties, all these ties with intelligence, the CIA, FBI, Homeland Security. And you're going to tell me that they're not going to do a background check? You're going to tell me that Ghislaine Maxwell wasn't already on some sort of list? That they already didn't have a file on her just because of her father's allegations? Like, even if you're going to try to convince me that somehow J.E. slipped through the cracks, I don't believe whatsoever for 1 minute, especially when he went to the White House 17 times between 1993 and 1995. But you're going to tell me that there was never any background check done, that they had no idea, and that they still didn't have any interest whatsoever in looking into it when she was out getting her nails done with her daughter or whatever they were doing, allegedly. But we know there were a lot of pictures taken. We know they were friends. We know that they socialized on a somewhat consistent basis. We know that she was at the wedding. We know that Doug Band criticized Hillary about that, saying that might not be a good idea. We know that. It's on the record. And when Hillary got asked about it, she said, I do not recall. Bullshit.
Purview when you were Secretary of State, then why is it today in Secretary Rubio's purview?
Because what's happened is that the office that was actually following what was going on around the world has been decimated. 70% of the staff is gone. It's impossible to carry out the functions of that office if you don't have a critical number of people. So my question would be to Secretary Rubio, is there more that can be done?
I'm running out of time here. You were clothed with immense power as Secretary of State. You've stated on the record in your opening statement that child sex trafficking in general, human trafficking, trafficking of all kinds is a priority. You were clothed with immense power. Your husband was clothed with immense power. And until you got this subpoena and until these files were out in the open, you did nothing to try to effectuate all of these things. You say that should have been done. Is that correct?
No, it's totally incorrect. I mean, all of your assumptions are ones that I reject.
When you saw photos of your husband in a hot tub laying on a beach.
Okay, she put that on the record. All of her assumptions are those that she rejects. So we're gonna go back. Remember, we're getting the transcript. I got the transcript for this. I have the transcript for my coverage. So that means that everything, all these little tidbits and little pieces of information and all these questions that I'm putting in, all of you guys, when this video is done and processed, can take the transcript, copy and paste it, put it into your notes, put it into your files, run it with AI, cross-reference it against other things. And that's how we do this investigation ourselves. We ask questions. We demand answers. We accumulate the information. We pass it on.
Getting massaged by other women, and you knew that Jeffrey Epstein was involved in some of these trips and these things. Did it concern you at all?
I'm here not to offer my opinions. I'm here to answer specific questions to the best of my ability.
When you saw your husband in these photos with a young woman being massaged, what went through your mind?
I am not going to speculate.
You didn't have any feelings about young women massaging your husband?
I am not going to offer opinions or speculation about anything that I have no context for and was not there.
After you learned that Jeffrey Epstein was convicted of sex crimes with kids, did any of these photos of your husband with women being massaged on the beach, did it concern you?
I have no context for even answering that question. And I think, obviously the innuendo, all the rest of it.
I'm asking a black and white question. I'm not putting any leading statements into it or adjectives. Did you do anything to determine what was happening in those images or on those trips? Once you saw these photos, once you realized Jeffrey Epstein was a convicted sex offender of children, did you do anything to determine what was happening on these trips with your husband?
I don't find any of your questions to be relevant to the investigation.
Well, it is relevant if a former president was traveling around with young women.
Well, you'll have a chance to talk to him tomorrow.
You said this morning you did not solicit funds from Jeffrey Epstein, correct?
That's absolutely correct.
Did anyone solicit funds from Jeffrey Epstein on your behalf?
Not that I'm aware of.
Did you ever invite Jeffrey Epstein or Ghislaine Maxwell to any of your political fundraisers?
I did not personally invite them to my political fundraisers.
Did anyone personally invite them on your behalf?
I do not know.
Is the purpose of a political fundraiser to solicit funds?
You would know that it is.
Okay, and you stated this morning you've never communicated with a Sarah Kay, correct?
I do not know who Sarah Kay is.
Okay, she's a councilwoman from New Rochelle, which is about how many miles from here?
Not very far away.
20 to 25?
I have no idea.
I have an exhibit I would like to enter. This is an email dated September 30th, 2014.
I like this girl
Exhibit.
asking the
Ma'am,
questions
this
right
would be
now.
Exhibit 13, I believe, majority exhibit 13.
Okay, it's from September 30th, 2014.
Can you please provide the witness with a copy?
Okay, you have a copy of it? You guys have it?
Yo, look at her face. She is glitching out right now. She is glitching out. This is what happens when you actually start putting the pressure on. Oh, we got a membership. 86 this shit. Thank you so much for the membership. What's up, Julie? I see you. But yo, she's glitching out. Hold on, I want to bring this back a couple seconds just so you could see. Tell me if you see what I see with her face. And this is what I mean. This is what I got to tell you. All these people, they're all human beings. They're all flesh and blood. They all have to live in the world with us. They're used to living in their own little bubble where everything's theater. But the second someone starts hitting them with the real questions and putting it in their face and saying that, like letting them know that they see through them, then you see the human side come out. Then you see everything really start to bleed out.
I do not
Look
know.
at her face.
Is the purpose of a political fundraiser to solicit funds?
You would know that it is.
Envy,
Okay,
thank
stated
you.
This morning you've never communicated with a Sarah Kay, correct?
I do not know who Sarah Kay is.
Okay, she's a councilwoman from New Rochelle, which is about how many miles from here?
Not very far away.
20 to 25?
I have no idea.
I have an exhibit I would like to enter. This is an email dated September 30th, 2014. Am I allowed to enter an exhibit?
Yes, ma'am. This will be exhibit 13, I believe, majority exhibit 13.
Okay, it's from September 30th, 2014.
Can you please provide the witness with a copy?
Look at her. She looks like
You have a copy of it? You guys have it?
she looks like one of those Ven bots in Austin Powers where like the head's about to explode.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
And can you read me the subject line of the email?
Following up, event with Hillary Clinton and Congresswoman Lowy.
Do you know who Congresswoman Lowy is?
She was our congresswoman here for many years.
And who is the email from?
Someone named Sarah Kay.
Above that, at the very, oh, you have that very top one. Okay. All right, from Sarah Kay, and it's redacted on who it was sent to. Can you read me the email?
Okay, thank you very much for the prompt reply. Hi, Sarah. Thank you for the invitation, but unfortunately, Jeffrey will not be able to attend. Thanks so much for speaking with me just now. Attached, please find the invitation and response card for the event we spoke about with Hillary Clinton and Congresswoman Lowy at the Harvard Club. That was a fundraiser, I believe.
Hold on. What did she say? From Sarah Kay. It's redacted on who it was sent to. Thank you very much for the reply. Invitation and response card for the event we spoke about with Hillary Clinton and Congresswoman Lowy at the Harvard Club.
For Congresswoman Lowy, that I attended to support her, is my recollection.
Okay. And this is an email, this is an invitation to the fundraiser where you were there.
Do you have any idea if the Epstein referred to is the Jeffrey Epstein? There's a lot of people named Epstein in this area.
This is an
You see what
DOJ.
she's trying to do? She's trying to say, are you sure we're talking about this? Are you sure we got the right Epstein with this email? The email with Sarah Kay, where you're getting brought up? You sure we even got the right one? Yo, the balls on her. The balls on her. Yo. That'd be like freaking OJ getting caught. And they're like, are you sure that's my wife? Yeah, that's messed up. I shouldn't even joke like that. But yeah, you know what I mean?
Files.
I have no knowledge of it.
It says Mr. and Mrs. Epstein.
Yeah, I have no knowledge of this.
Okay. So it could be a different Jeffrey Epstein.
I have. You're showing me an email from someone who I don't recall knowing about a fundraiser that wasn't for me but was for Congresswoman Lowy. I have no information.
She doesn't recall knowing him. I mean, maybe they got the right Jeffrey Epstein. Maybe they got the wrong Hillary Clinton. Are you sure they're talking about the right Hillary Clinton? I'm sure there's a couple of those too, right?
I went to the fundraiser to support my friend Nia Lowy.
All right.
Excuse me, can I interrupt?
I have
There are
another.
photos that are being released. of the secretary as she is testifying from inside this room. Can you please advise me as to whether or not that's permissible and consistent with the rules, particularly given that we have asked for a public hearing? If there are photos that are being released of the secretary as she is testifying, can you please explain how
I'm
that can
done
occur?
with this. If you guys are doing that, I am done. You can
I'm
hold me
done.
in contempt from
Yeah,
now
this
to the
is
cows come
great.
home. This is just typical behavior.
We will go off the record.
Oh, for heaven's
So I would
sake.
like to understand how that's permissible.
Before the hearing was,
It doesn't matter. We all are abiding by the same rules.
I will take that down.
Yeah,
I
well,
would like to take a break at this moment.
yeah.
You guys cheated. That's not fair. We didn't know you had evidence. Is that really what's going on? That's not fair. We're following the same rules. You didn't tell us you had evidence. What is going on here? I'm leaving.
I'd like to have
I'm
a
done
conversation.
for now.
Go off the record. Go off the record. We'll go back on the record. The majority
Is
time
that
has
did that
about
really
25
just
minutes left
happen?
in it. I believe that the witness or her counsel would like to make a quick statement.
Thank you so much. We've just used the break because we learned during the process of this hearing that the committee was violating its own rules and members tweeting and sharing pictures of what is going on inside this closed hearing, the hearing that we have asked repeatedly to be open to the public. Chairman Comer was gracious enough to engage with me on this matter. We asked specifically to invite the press in, since the committee had already made decisions on its own unilaterally to release pictures and other things that are going on in this room. He indicated that he wanted to speak to that himself directly. I'd like to just say for the record,
I wish I could ask her the questions. Because I would go to the places none of these people have the balls to go to. I would start at Rose Law and her connection with Webster Hubble, her old boss, the one that, mysteriously looks just like Chelsea. You ever seen those pictures? I've posted about them before. I'm not going to do it right now. And before I continue this little mini rant, I just want to say that I love my life. I love everything about my life, my friends, my family, my associates, my followers. I don't drink. I don't use substances. I would never harm myself or anybody else. And I am a Christian. I love Jesus. I appreciate everything. Let's just put it out there. But I would start with Rose Law. I would start with, around the same time that Juanita Broderick made the allegations against Bill Clinton. It was around the same time that Hillary was spending a lot of time working with Webster Hubble. That was like 78, 79. And then all of a sudden she popped out Chelsea in 1980. There's a lot of stuff there. And then, we could go into the 80s and we could talk about what was going on with, their time in Arkansas when Bill was governor of Arkansas, and all the Barry Seal stuff, everything going on in Mena, Arkansas. There was a lot of stuff connected to Iran-Contra. There was a lot of, mysterious deaths that there, been rumors about over the years. And then, once they get into the White House or they're getting ready to get into the White House, then you got the whole Vince Foster case. And what happened there? That was like one of her close associates. And he did not like his life very much. He did not love his life. He did not appreciate what he had very much. I don't think he was a Christian, because for him to do what he allegedly did. But I would start asking about that. You got to get a baseline. You got to take things to the beginning and really start to branch out. People, you need a little context, a little backstory. There's a lot of other names that I could ask about, but I would get her rattled up a little bit. Travelgate, because, Pizzagate was not the first gate. It was not the first gate. There was a Travelgate. There was a Watergate. There was, oh no, wait, no, I'm sorry. She wasn't involved with Watergate. I think she was involved in the Warren, was it the Warren Commission? Yeah, that was Watergate, right? I got to look. I got to check. She was involved in one of those damn committees, and I think she got thrown out if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, this woman has a really, really shady past. And I have a feeling that if I tried and I was in the position to, that I could ask her 100 questions and she would say, I do not recall, to every single one of them. To every single one of them.
record, we find it unacceptable,
And I wonder why.
we find it unprofessional, and we find it unfair. We are looking forward to this being conducted under the rules and being conducted consistent with the expectations of how members of Congress, I know, take this matter so seriously and do it in that vein. We would also like to just indicate as a practical reality that we are here in good faith. We are counting on the good faith of all the members.
Thank you. Chairman Comer.
Yeah, I'd like to state for the record, I've advised my members that no photos or videos during the deposition can be released. I understand the posted photo was taken before the deposition started. We will, that will not happen again, and we will look forward to continue with the deposition.
I'd like to make just a clarification there, Mr. Chairman. It was taken in this room after the witness sat down. It is not a basis that because she had not started speaking, that it would be appropriate for there to have been a release of anything that was occurring in this room.
And we have made clear that that's not allowed. And I will also say we were disappointed that the Secretary's opening statement was leaked to the press before she even gave her opening statement.
So the Secretary's statement was not leaked to the press. It was provided.
Yo, screw this.
Said, that Maxwell was at Chelsea's wedding because she.
They're sitting there trying to get it on the record about how it wasn't fair that they brought in evidence and that they broke the rules. Because apparently, in this kind of setting, with this kind of circumstances, and the biggest case of all time that she is clearly directly connected to, that it is against the rules to administer evidence.
She was dating a friend who brought her as a plus one and all that. So there's a Democrat member leaking to the press what's going on in here, according to the Annie Carney.
So, Mr. Chairman, thank you so much. I know part of this is always about the tit for tat, and I think that's what we're trying to address. We're here and we're speaking with respect to the witness and what has been a violation of a photo of her inside this room. I'm not trying to get into anybody else's First Amendment rights. When it comes to the photo, please instruct your member to take the photo down until after.
I have.
Thank you so much. Nothing further.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is. I'll be doing most of the questioning for the minority today. First, I want to thank you for your long and distinguished service to this country.
Thank you.
I'd also want to thank you for your time today. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Before we get to questions, I'd like to take a few minutes and highlight some context that we think is relevant for today's conversation. To be candid with you, it's not clear to us that you have much information to share with this committee that would be relevant to our investigation of Jeffrey Epstein. For example, I would like to introduce as Minority Exhibit A this excerpt from Ghislaine Maxwell's interview with Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche. I'll read out loud the relevant excerpt for you. You can see that Ms. Maxwell was asked, quote, "Do you know whether Mr. Epstein had, knew, or had any sort of visit, dealings, or associated with Hillary Clinton?" And Ms. Maxwell said, quote, "I would say no." Ms. Maxwell was asked, quote, "Did you ever see them together?" Ms. Maxwell said, "No." So, there are some events we're aware of where you might have been in the same place as Mr. Epstein or Ms. Maxwell at the same time. We'll ask about those, but we are a little confused about why we're even here. I imagine you might have your own perspective on this. You shared a little bit of that earlier. Is there anything more you'd like to share from your point of view on today's conversation before we get started?
Thank you very much, Counsel. I appreciate your recognition of the context. I do not think I am or could be a significant witness to anything that would affect the work of this committee with respect to the investigation. I understand that that was a decision made to subpoena me, and
all right, guys, I'm sorry. I can't
it would have been
just
more appropriate
listen to all this
treat
bullshit.
me to Ghislaine Maxwell, but I can absolutely testify to the fact that I did not.
Are there any other accusations or claims that have been made against you with respect to Mr. Epstein or Ms. Maxwell that you would like to address before we move into some chronological questions?
Well, I don't keep up with all the conspiracy theories and the crazy allegations that populate the internet, so I'm sure there are. But I will do my best to answer your questions as you pose them.
Okay. I will ask a series of chronological questions. I know most of these are.
We have examined the second photo that was taken inside this room in violation of the committee's rules. Mr. Chairman, you have indicated that you will assure that that will not happen again. Mr. Chairman, we continue to believe that the remedy for this is to invite the press in at this juncture. We believe that there is no reason not to do so. We recognize it.
Him to be a volunteer, but he proved to be a very effective contributor to the campaign. He earned a paid position on the campaign. All of my staff that interacted with him on the campaign had a very high regard for his intelligence and his skills. He's an extremely well-educated young man. And when I became Secretary of State, he was recommended for a job that he was well suited for. I had absolutely no idea that he was in any way related to Ghislaine Maxwell until I received the subpoena from this committee suggesting that he was. And that was the first I knew of it.
So is it fair to say that as far as you know, Mr. DeRossi was not hired for your campaign or at the State Department because he was Ghislaine Maxwell's nephew?
That is absolutely fair to say. And
okay, so she had one of Ghislaine's relatives working for her campaign, and she's claiming that she did not know that they were related. And that is definitely not why he got the job.
I can't speak for everyone in my campaign. Obviously, it's a huge enterprise, but I would be surprised if anyone knew that he was related to Ghislaine Maxwell, but I can absolutely testify to the fact that I did not.
From the sounds
Are
of
there any
it,
other
you would be surprised
accusations
if
or
anybody
claims that
knew
have been made
anything
against you
about
with
anything.
respect to Mr. Epstein or Ms. Maxwell that you would like to address before we move into some chronological questions?
Well, I don't keep up with all the conspiracy theories and the crazy allegations that populate the internet, so I'm sure there are. But I will do my best to answer your questions as you pose them.
Okay.
Why is
I will
that
ask
funny?
a series of chronological questions. I know most of these are from a long time ago. If you don't recall, just tell me you don't recall. As an initial matter, would you recall roughly how many events and receptions would you have attended at the White House during your time as First Lady?
Well, I was privileged to be at the White House as First Lady for 8 years, and I have no way of giving you an accurate number, but they would be in the thousands. And they were, one of the great privileges of being in the White House, hosting events, hosting meetings, meeting people, using the rooms of the White House, using the grounds of the White House. So many hundreds, maybe thousands of events, but many, many thousands of people.
I was just going to ask if you could estimate how many people you might have met at those hundreds or thousands of events and receptions.
Well, Counsel, I can't say I met every person who ever attended an event, and so I can't really give you an accurate number. But if the event was a small event, perhaps I would meet everyone. But for most of the large events that we hosted, it was hit or miss if I met somebody or didn't meet somebody. For the huge Christmas receptions, which were thousands of people that would come to enjoy the holiday decorations.
Now think about it. Think about this for a second, okay? Now they're pointing out that there were certain events that they were all there together. Bill and Hillary Clinton, two of the most powerful people in America, most powerful and influential people in America. While he was president, after he was president. Now, if we know that J.E. and Maxwell were working intelligence, like they weren't just there to mingle and make friends. They had a mission. They had objectives. They had goals. Who would they be there for? Think about it. You think they're there to, just any random people? You think they're just there to mingle? I mean, I'm not saying that they're just there for them, but you don't think that they were on a list of people that they wanted to interact with? I mean, I could be wrong, but from my perspective, it seems like common sense. It seems like common sense. And it is insane to believe Hillary when she's like, oh, yeah, they might have been there. I don't know. I was dealing with a lot of people and, people were just there. It's like, no. Those two were there for a reason. They were trying to get to know people. They were trying to, whatever they were doing. And what? You just went around la, 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 never knew they were there? And then somehow she ends up being like buddy-buddy with your daughter? And you don't know nothing? And then Ghislaine has a relative working on your campaign? And you don't know nothing? Ghislaine's at your daughter's wedding? You don't know nothing? The wedding that took place after J.E. had his accusations, was charged and sentenced and whatever? And you knew nothing. And you can't recall any interactions. You can't recall ever even meeting the guy. And then the second they start bringing emails up that might prove otherwise, this is ridiculous. You're breaking the rules. You weren't supposed to do this. You promised. Is that what I'm seeing? Is that what's going on here? Is this evidence that all this WWE political theater that I keep talking about might just be pretty spot on?
At the White House. So I can't really give you a totally clear answer other than I did my best to greet people and to be an appropriate hostess because I took seriously my responsibilities as First Lady.
So Mr. Epstein visited the White House a fair amount during your husband's first term in office. One, and I think the only specific event that we're aware of where you may have been present was, as you mentioned earlier, a September 29th, 1993 reception for donors to a White House renovation project that was funded through the White House Historical Association. And our understanding is there was some kind of reception that night. Do you have any recollection of attending that event or that reception?
I have no specific recollection, but I know that I was expected to, and I assume I did. But I can't, sitting here today, describe
She's a
anything
pro.
specific about that event. But I was very anxious to support fundraising that went to the White House Historical Association that in turn supported the upkeep and the maintenance of the White House. Because certainly, it was an old building with a lot of very valuable furniture and art, and it took a lot of wear and tear because I just finished explaining we had thousands of people who would come through. And I'm not even talking about the visitors who would come through, because that was many, many more thousands. So the house itself needed to be carefully cared for. And so I my husband and I hosted the event, and the White House Historical Association brought those who had contributed because it was ultimately beneficial for the White House.
Would it be correct to say that sitting here, you have no specific memory or recollection of meeting Mr. Epstein or Ms. Maxwell at that event in 1993?
That is an accurate statement. In fact, when I got the subpoena, I was incredulous because I never thought I was in the same room with Jeffrey Epstein. And it was brought to my attention that he was very likely to have attended the White House Historical Association, but I have no independent recollection of that.
Okay. It has been publicly reported that Mr. Epstein visited the White House 16 other times during your husband's first term. He was signed in by different staff members and visited different parts of the White House. Broadly speaking, do you have any memory or knowledge of any other visits by Jeffrey Epstein to the White House other than the one we just discussed?
Not that I recall, but I want to be clear. It doesn't mean that, I didn't pass somebody in the hallway, that somebody didn't pop in, but I have no recollection
Great.
of meeting with him, seeing him, conversing with him in the White House.
I'm going to fast forward all the way to 1999. We believe that Mr. Epstein contributed $20,000 to your joint.
Yeah, I did text thanks. He didn't get back to me. There must have been a miscommunication. I thought he was going a little later for some reason. Also, I was planning on going a little earlier, but it is what it is. We were already like an hour in. I didn't want to just cut it short if we had put a little more time, but I'm going to talk to him a little later regardless.
Joint fundraising account with the Democratic Party. Would you have any specific memory, knowledge, or recollection of that particular contribution sitting here today?
I do not. And again, this was something that I learned about in preparation for testifying. And as you point out, counsel, the contribution went to the joint committee that was set up to support my
Tay
Senate
is
campaign.
in the House.
And my memory is that we couldn't coordinate between joint committees and campaigns. I mean, those were the rules back in the day as I recall them. So I don't have any recollection at all that I knew he contributed to my campaign. And he did not contribute, as far as I know, directly. But then this indirect contribution to the Joint Committee, I don't recall that I knew it at the time, and I was, surprised to learn it in preparation for testifying.
So at this point, toward the end of your husband's presidency, how would you characterize your relationships at that point with Mr. Epstein and Ms. Maxwell?
Non-existent.
Thank you. Moving to the period after your husband's presidency, again, we don't really have much of a record to work off of. There is public reporting that sometime in 2007, Ms. Maxwell may have co-hosted a fundraiser for the presidential campaign in New York City. We don't know much about it. Christina Aguilera may have performed, if that's helpful. Do you have any specific recollection of that event?
I do not, but I, again, have been told and reminded that there was an event with a very large host committee for my campaign, and Christina did appear and I believe perform. I have no further information than that. I was attending many fundraising events and.
Yo, could you just imagine all the people in like that 2015, 2016, and before, a little after, that like really believed that she should have been president? Why? She can't recall anything. She has like no recollection of all the most important questions in one of the biggest freaking cases that she's ever been implicated in, or allegedly, potentially implicated, whatever the wording is to not get sued. I don't know. But she has no recollection. Every time we go through this, every time there's a scandal, every time she has to testify, she doesn't recall. She don't know. So she was focused on something else. It was someone else was handling it. Could you imagine if she did become president? You know what I mean? Like, could you imagine? It's like insane. It's insane. Like, I don't know. It's insane.
I don't recall any specific
Yeah, I didn't know
encounter or conversation with anyone, including Ghislaine Maxwell.
Ms. Maxwell also appears to have donated $2,300 to your presidential campaign that year. Do you have any memory or knowledge of that specific contribution?
I do not.
Would it be fair to say that your presidential campaign likely would have had a fair number of donors donating $2,300 thereabouts?
Oh, many, many thousands. I don't recall the exact number, but my best memory is that we raised nearly $1 billion. And so it was a fast, frenetic pace. And I'm grateful for everyone who contributed, obviously, but I have no specific recollection of her contribution.
It's been widely reported, and we, I think, discussed in the previous hour, that in July of 2010, Ms. Maxwell attended your daughter's wedding in Rhinebeck, New York, and that she may have accompanied Ted Waite, who is reportedly a family friend, or at least was at the time. You, of course, were also present at the wedding. Do you have any recollection of Ms. Maxwell's attendance at the wedding?
I have no specific recollection. Obviously, there's a picture of her being at the wedding as my husband walks my daughter down the aisle. She was there as a guest of Ted Waite, someone we had known for 30 years, I believe, who was a strong supporter of my husband and became a friend. And there were more than 500 people at the wedding. So other than that picture of her at the wedding, I have no recollection of talking with her. I was pretty focused on my daughter and the wedding party and the wonderful occasion that it was. So I don't recall having any conversation other than the fact she was there, and she was there as Ted Waite.
Yo, how long do you guys think it's going to take me? Advanced conspiracy in the house and sending a gift membership. I appreciate you, buddy. Thank you. But like I was saying, how long do you think it's going to take me to go through this whole video and clip out every time she says, I don't recall or I have no recollection? Because I'm going to do it. I am going to do it. I'm probably going to do it tonight after my 10 o'clock live. I'm probably going to end up being up till 6 o'clock in the morning tonight doing this because I have to. I feel this urge. I just got to do it because she has said it so many times. So many times. You guys be ready. You guys be ready.
Waite's guest.
And the understanding that you had, if any, about her relationship with Mr. Waite, what was your understanding of that, if you had one?
That they must have been dating. And this was, of course, long before certainly I knew anything about the activities that she was charged with engaging in and the crimes that she was convicted of.
During her interview last year with Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, Ms. Maxwell said that she may have met you on a flight from Nantucket or Martha's Vineyard to New York. That's not a lot to go on, and I would note that one of the charges Ms. Maxwell faced was perjury. But do you recall ever meeting Ms. Maxwell on a flight from Massachusetts to New York?
I don't recall it. I'm not going to say it didn't happen, but I don't recall it. And my memory, too, counsel, you would have to check this, but I believe I was told that in her long interview with Todd Blanche, it's Todd Blanche, right? Todd Blanche, the Deputy Attorney General, she herself said that she...
And the crazy part is he's like reminding her like she needs the reminder. It's like, oh, if you don't recall, you could just tell us you don't recall. It's like, I don't recall. Like,
attended the wedding as Ted Waite's guest.
In that same interview, Ms. Maxwell said that she visited your home in Chappaqua a few times and that she was invited. Do you have any memory or knowledge of Ms. Maxwell being invited to and visiting your home?
I do not, and I was not present for any visit if one occurred.
It's been reported that in September of 2013, at a Clinton Global Initiative conference in New York, Ms. Maxwell was recognized as a Commitment to Action partner for her work on behalf of the Terra Mar Project, which was an ocean conservation nonprofit that she founded in 2012. Do you have any recollection of whether you were at that event? So that's a Clinton Global Initiative conference in New York in September 2013.
I believe I attended the conference, but during the conference, there are many different sessions going on. There are some main stage sessions with very high-profile people. We've had an extraordinary collection of world leaders, including Pope Francis and others. But then there are many of what are called breakout sessions that are smaller sessions where people gather usually around the issue they're interested in. So in this case, if it had been the oceans, there might have been a breakout session about that. And I do not recall seeing her there. I do not recall any knowledge of her being there. But if she were there and she were making a commitment, it would have been in one of these smaller.
now, why aren't they asking her about the other world leaders that were there? I mean, they would already know. They would have a list. But I would want to know who she remembers, what she recollects, if she recollects anything. But think about it. They're asking her, like, hey, you were at this place with Ghislaine, da-da-da-da-da. And she's like, yeah, well, I mean, there was a lot of world leaders. There was a lot of breakout sessions. It's like, oh, really? Like, what breakout sessions do you recollect? Who were you talking to? You know, because maybe they have some evidence about who Ghislaine was talking to. Maybe there is something on record. Get her on the record. See if any of that intertwines. Or see if maybe she was talking to someone and Ghislaine was talking to someone, and then two of the people they were talking to were talking to the same person. Like, there are so many different ways that this could go. And all of these questions are designed. It's like they're softballs. It's like she's not even being forced to answer. They're literally telling her, like, listen, I mean, if you recall, can you tell us? And she's like, I don't recall. It's like, this is the theater. This is the structure. This is how it is. It's designed this way. It's designed this way for a reason. They're not trying to charge her. They're not trying to implicate anybody. They sit here going through the motions for 4 hours, and then all of a sudden they got the headlines. Hillary's cleared. Hillary wasn't involved. There's no evidence. You know, Kash Patel is going to read this transcript later, and he's going to be like, yeah, you know, if he has to testify again, and they're going to say, hey, Kash Patel, like, Hillary, like, we got all these files, we got all this stuff, she testified, and he's going to get up there and he's going to be like, well, you know, I went over the entire transcript and the entire testimony, and I mean, after doing so, there was no credible evidence. Let me repeat this. Let me make it clear. I saw no credible evidence in the transcript that would allow me to prosecute Hillary Clinton for any involvement with Jeffrey Epstein or Ghislaine Maxwell. There was no credible evidence. There was nothing that was said. It's like, yeah, because she said she didn't recall to every fucking question. No shit. And this is the charade. This is the WWE. This is what I'm always telling you guys about. This is what it is, folks. The kangaroo courts of America. Justice for all, right?
Sessions. And I have to add, you know, in 2013, Ms. Maxwell spoke at the United Nations. She gave a TED Talk. She was featured for her work about oceans in a long profile on CNN. So she had a...
Yeah, don't worry. A lot of people don't get the notification. I've been sitting here for almost 2 hours. We only have 174 views. I got more than 174 subscribers in the last 2 days. I could pull up my analytics. My subscribers are going up. My retention is going up. My hours is going up. But my views are going down. My impressions are going down. How does that make sense? How does that make sense? When I'm on a live stream and they cut the feed, or when we're in the chat and all of a sudden the chat gets hacked and we can't speak English and everybody's sitting here, you know, practicing with Rosetta Stone, trying to communicate in Spanish or with numbers and emojis. There is a reason for this. There is a reason why you'll see other pages that are feeding you guys complete bullshit and going along with the narrative, and they have thousands of people watching, and they're getting their names dropped from all these different big influencers. There is a reason why you're not hearing my name. There is a reason why people are telling you not to say my name in chats. It's because there is a lot of shenanigans going on. There is a lot of bullshit. There is a lot of WWE that's going on in other places, not just our politics. And maybe I just know a little too much. Maybe I'm just a little too smart for everybody. Maybe I just don't know how to shut the fuck up. And they know that I might, you know, say some things that might give all you guys a little too big of a peek behind the curtain of how all this stuff really works. Maybe. Or maybe I just suck at this. Maybe I'm not credible. Maybe I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. Maybe I'm not entertaining. And, you know, this is just what I deserve. To do a live stream for a couple hours, have 24 or so people watching, a couple loyal supporters, and nobody gets any impressions. I don't get any views. Maybe I'll get better. You know what? Maybe that's it. Maybe I just need to start going live more and keep making more videos and get my reps in. Maybe if I keep practicing, I'll get better and I'll get more people watching me. What do you guys think?
A public persona that the UN, the TED Talk people, CNN, and the press all recognize, because nobody at that time knew what was later discovered.
And is it right to say, and it sounds like you would not have had any direct role in organizing whatever her role was at that particular event?
Not that I recall.
At that point in 2013, if you can recall, how would you have characterized your relationships with Mr. Epstein and Ms. Maxwell?
Had no relationship, no knowledge of, never met or talked to Jeffrey Epstein. I viewed Ghislaine Maxwell as an acquaintance, someone that I might see, but had no real relationship with.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. I know that a couple of the minority members have just a couple questions as part of this hour as well, and so I have a few, and then I'll turn it over to a couple of the minority members as well. You can hear me okay from here?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
But it would help if the minority
Yeah.
members would move to where
Yeah,
across.
I'm actually going to sit right here as soon as I'm.
Perfect,
Yeah.
perfect. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I want to just begin by just asking a few questions, which I believe you've already clarified in your opening statement, but just to be very clear on the record one more time. As best as you can recall, you've never met Jeffrey Epstein.
That's true. That's correct.
As best as you can recall, and I know that, and you said this, you've never went to the island,
Never went to the island.
you never flew with him on a plane,
Never flew with him on a plane.
and you were never aware of his horrific crimes prior to those becoming public knowledge. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. I also wanted just to note, one of the questions that we've been receiving a lot has been speculation amongst the public that Jeffrey Epstein was somehow affiliated with foreign intelligence agencies or other intelligence services. And I know that we have received...
All right, guys, now it's getting good. And I told you, I did not watch this. There was no way in hell that I was going to watch this twice. I'm sorry. And if this has some boring parts and if it's a really long stream, I'm sorry. I will trim this down and make it more entertaining and do like a shorter, edited version. I'm going to do the same thing with the Les Wexner deposition that I did a couple weeks ago. And I'm going to do the same thing with the Bill Clinton one that I have yet to do. And I might do tonight. I'm not sure. But I'm not watching this crap twice. It's bad enough I got to record it and then I got to edit it. I'm not going to sit here for 4 hours and review. I would rather just give you guys my honest reaction anyway. But I just wanted to pause it for a second because now we're getting into foreign intelligence. And remember, she was Secretary of State from 2009 to 2013. And in 2010, her daughter had Ghislaine Maxwell at her wedding. Also in 2010, the FBI flew to Australia to interview Virginia Giuffre about the case. All right? So I just want to give you that pretext. Keep that in mind. And let's see what questions they ask, what questions they don't ask, and if there's anything that Hillary Clinton recalls.
Numerous questions of that type. Now, obviously, you served as Secretary of State. I'm grateful thank you for your service. In your role as Secretary of State, were you ever made aware of Jeffrey Epstein having any types of relationships with foreign intelligence agencies, obviously, of course, of a foreign country?
I was not. And Ranking Member Garcia, I am aware of the speculation around this that comes from the files being released and questions being raised. And I do think that is a fruitful area for the committee to investigate.
No, I appreciate that because I'll say of the types of questions that we're receiving, the kind of conversation around whether Jeffrey Epstein had any ties to foreign intelligence or was working with foreign governments continues to come up. And so obviously, as Secretary of State, that would be something I would imagine
I like the way she's bobbing her head.
So I appreciate that response. Madam Secretary, just lastly, I want to also thank you for your testimony. And broadly speaking, you've probably been following just recently and this week, we've seen and there's been reports that numerous files are missing from the group of files that have been released. For the record.
Whoa. Are you changing the subject already? Is that all you're asking about the foreign intelligence aspect of this? Are you kidding me right now? You're not going any deeper? You're not going to talk about like what I just talked about? Were you aware that the FBI went to Australia to talk to Virginia Giuffre? I haven't heard Robert Maxwell's name brought up once. When you were Secretary of State and your whole job is to deal with foreign nations, did you ever see anything in the files did you ever see anything, were there any records in files of foreign intelligence that Ghislaine Maxwell could have been a foreign agent, especially because of her father, Robert Maxwell? Like, that's not a question. They're not going to ask that. They're not going to touch it. They ask like one question just referencing foreign intelligence to bring it on the record and then just abandon it right away. There are like 1,000 questions that you could ask. You could literally spend 4 hours, 4 days in a row, just staying on that subject. And they're just hopping right over it.
Only about approximately 50% of the total files have likely been released. The other percentage have been withheld for whatever reasons we're not really sure of and don't really understand. It's also been reported by numerous outlets this week that the FBI has removed files that.
Wait, you got put in time out? Yo, that's crazy. That's crazy. I've heard that from a couple of people. That's a little disappointing too. I'm not gonna lie, because I was supporting that guy, you know, before he got to where he is now. Whatever. I'm not gonna get into that.
Are supposed to be made available to the Congress that include serious allegations of alleged abuse by President Trump, sexual abuse to a minor. Now, these are allegations that we know have been corroborated in other ways, and the media have reported on these, but these files themselves have been removed. Now, we view this as a very serious matter. I've personally looked for these files in the archive manifest that lists which files should be placed there. Those files are no longer there. And we have been calling on the DOJ and the Attorney General to release all of the files. I'm wondering if, in your experience, obviously in the U.S. Senate, as Secretary of State, if you've any response to the behavior of the DOJ in their withholding of critical information and the apparent removal of files that could suggest serious crimes by folks in this administration.
Congressman, I appreciate your raising this issue, and I appreciated the statement that you put out when this became public knowledge, thanks to investigative reporting, which revealed it. And I think that this behavior by the Justice Department deserves the most thorough investigation that the Congress could carry out. As I understand the sequence of events, this committee subpoenaed the Justice Department, as well as the Epstein estate, as well as law enforcement officials from prior administrations, as well as my husband and me. The Justice Department refused to comply, which is what led to the passage by the Congress of the Transparency Act, which then was signed into law. And I think from the very beginning, the behavior of the Attorney General and her staff has demonstrated either a gross incompetence, which is bothersome because they are the keepers of information that should be evaluated for law enforcement purposes, or a clear cover-up because they are protecting the president and others. Either one of those should be the focus of this committee to try to get to the bottom. If they are incompetent and they are incapable of complying with the law that the Congress passed, we need to know that because they are falling down on the job. They have an FBI director who's more interested in drinking beer in a hockey dressing room after our team won the Olympics, rather than being responsive and complying with the law as it has been promulgated. So
Mark brings up a good point. Like, wasn't there a report that she like literally broke a phone with a hammer and destroyed thousands of emails that were on a private server that she may or may not have illegally had classified files on, or classified information in emails on a private server, whatever the exact details were? A little bit of a double standard, a little hypocritical. And isn't it also crazy how she's sitting here talking about like criticizing the Trump administration because Kash Patel, and I criticize Kash Patel too for, you know, the whole drinking beers in the locker room with Team USA. And I think we should all be critical of that. But I mean, considering, you know, what was going on when her husband was in the White House, you know, getting monikered from Monica, I don't think she's really in a position to speak.
I don't think it's unfair to say that given the sequencing of the events, starting with the way that President Trump made the release of the files a key element of his 2024 campaign, the promise that he and then his attorney general made that the files would be released, then a walking back of that as they began to look at the files, an ignoring of what they had promised, including that they had a client list on the desk of the attorney general. Reasonable people would have to assume they are engaged in a massive cover-up, which is infuriating. As an American, as a citizen, all of us should be, regardless of party, wondering what are they hiding? And that's why I said in my opening statement, the President of the United States is not above the law and should be, in a setting like this, answering questions under oath. as should others who are prominently featured in the files, and especially the group that is featured after 2008. Because prior to 2008, when Jeffrey Epstein pled guilty to the watered-down charges that Alex Acosta negotiated and then was rewarded for in the first Trump administration with a cabinet position, there are so many unanswered questions. And I looked at the transcript of the Alex Acosta testimony that was taken before this committee, and I don't think that any Republican members asked him a question. So you have to conclude that there is something rotten in the state of Denmark, or clearly the Justice Department, starting in the White House and at the top with the Attorney General. And this latest...
Okay. You see what she just did there? Remember what I was saying before about accountability starts at the top and trickles down? That's what I was saying about the Clinton Foundation, the Clinton Global Initiative, every White House, every administration. Accountability starts at the top and trickles down. Now, she's saying that when it comes to Trump. But then when it comes to the questions about her and her organizations, it's, well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I was busy doing this. This person was taking care of that. You would have to ask them. Like, you see the hypocrisy? You see the double standards? You know, and it's in every situation that accountability starts at the top and trickles down. You don't just pass the buck on the people under you. And when the people under you are doing things that they really shouldn't be doing, or they're doing things that offend people or upset people or represent you in a way that you might not want to be represented, you need to deal with it. You need to deal with it. You know, you can't just play dumb. You can't just be like, oh, well, I don't know why they did that. Oh, well, no. Accountability starts at the top and trickles down in every scenario.
Latest example of the missing files about the allegations, and they are absolutely nothing more than allegations, but the FBI interviewed that witness 4 times. You don't interview a non-credible witness 4 times. You don't put into the FBI reporting, protect this source, if you think there is nothing to it. So, of course, I would like to know, like every other American deserves to know, what is in those files and who is going to hold people accountable, because the Justice Department seems to be either unwilling or incapable of doing so.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Let me also just add one thing. You've probably also read reporting that Secretary Lutnick was pretty open in an interview about not having spoken to...
Oh, we're going to talk about Howard Lutnick. This should be good. Let's see.
Mr. Epstein, or interacted with him after 2005. And then we go on to learn that Secretary Lutnick not only went to the island, there were visits, they went into possible business together, communicated with his wife. So there were numerous interactions that happened after that interview. We believe that Secretary Lutnick should be in front of this committee answering questions, especially when he's choosing to essentially lie about his interactions with Mr. Epstein. Would you agree that Secretary Lutnick should come and testify?
I think everyone that the committee sees playing a prominent role in the files should be deposed. That is your job. Your job is to try to get to the truth as best as you can determine it. And that should be the guiding principle, it seems to me, as to who you ask to come before you.
Thank you.
Hello, Congressman.
Hello. Thank you, Secretary, for being here today. I'm going to ask you a few questions that might be a little redundant.
That's
but
okay.
Just to get on the record. Am I correct that you did not know at any...
All right, 86. Let's not get carried away. Let me, if that stuff needs to be said, I will take care of it. I love Barron. He's been a friend of the show. I don't know what's going on with all the drama. I'm not going to lie. I did message his sister about it, though, and they did not get back to me. So, I don't know. It is what it is.
Any point before Jeffrey Epstein's crimes became public that Epstein committed or facilitated sexual abuse of minors and young women?
That is correct.
And prior to Epstein's crimes becoming public, were you ever warned not to...
Rather than being responsive and complying with the law as it has been promulgated. So I don't think it's unfair to say that given the sequencing of the events, starting with the way that President Trump made the release of the files a key element of his 2024 campaign, the promise that he and then his attorney general made that the files would be released, then a walking back of that as they began to look at the files, an ignoring of what they had promised, including that they had a client list on the desk of the Attorney General, reasonable people would have to assume they are engaged in a massive cover-up, which is infuriating. As an American, as a citizen, all of us should be, regardless of party, wondering what are they hiding. And that's why I said in my opening statement, the President of the United States is not above the law and should be, in a setting like this, answering questions under oath, as should others who are prominently featured in the files, and especially the group that is featured after 2008. Because prior to 2008, when Jeffrey Epstein pled guilty to the watered-down charges that Alex Acosta negotiated and then was rewarded for in the first Trump administration with a cabinet position, there are so many unanswered questions. And I looked at the transcript of the Alex Acosta testimony that was taken before this committee, and I don't think that any Republican members asked him a question. So you have to conclude that there is something rotten in the state of Denmark, or clearly the Justice Department, starting in the White House and at the top with the Attorney General. And this latest example of the missing files about the allegations, and they are absolutely nothing more than allegations, but the FBI interviewed that witness 4 times. You don't interview a non-credible witness 4 times. You don't put into the FBI reporting, protect this source, if you think there is nothing to it. So, of course, I would like to know, like every other American deserves to know, what is in those files and who is going to hold people accountable, because the Justice Department seems to be either unwilling or incapable of doing so.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Let me also just add one thing. You've probably also read reporting that Secretary Lutnick was pretty open in an interview about not having spoken to Mr. Epstein or interacted with him after 2005. And then we go on to learn that Secretary Lutnick not only went to the island, there were visits, they went into possible business together, communicated with his wife. So there were numerous interactions that happened after that interview. We believe that Secretary Lutnick should be in front of this committee answering questions, especially when he's choosing to essentially lie about his interactions with Mr. Epstein. Would you agree that Secretary Lutnick should come and testify?
I think everyone that the committee sees playing a prominent role in the files should be deposed. That is your job. Your job is to try to get to the truth as best as you can determine it. And that's...
Yeah, I agree, but I don't think they should be deposed like this, because this has been bullshit. You're not even getting asked the real questions. They're literally saying, if you recall, before they ask you. Like, this is a charade. This is theater. Like, we're not getting to the bottom of anything. There's no real accountability here. They're not even letting you guys bring in evidence.
That should be the guiding principle, it seems to me, as to who you ask to come before you.
Thank you.
Hello, Congressman.
Hello. Thank you, Secretary, for being here today. I'm going to ask you a few questions that might be a little redundant.
That's
but
okay.
Just to get on the record. Am I correct that you did not know at any point before Jeffrey Epstein's crimes became public that Epstein committed or facilitated sexual abuse of minors and young women?
That is correct.
And prior to Epstein's crimes becoming public, were you ever warned not to associate with him?
Not that I recall.
And you did not know at any point before Maxwell's crimes became public that she committed or facilitated sexual abuse of minors or young women?
That is correct.
And did anyone ever raise concerns to you about Miss Maxwell or warn you not to associate with her?
Not that I recall.
Thank you. And you served as First Lady and U.S. Senator and Secretary of State. And so you met a lot of other heads of state, foreign dignitaries. And so at any point, did Jeffrey Epstein or Ghislaine Maxwell's names come up?
Not that I recall.
And you mentioned you did a lot of work on human trafficking. Could you talk a little bit more about that? And then also, I would love to know if Jeffrey Epstein or Ghislaine Maxwell's names ever came up.
No, I can tell you that those names never came up. As I said, prior to their crimes becoming public, I don't think people knew. Or if they did know, they were not sharing that. Or if they did share it with the FBI or the Justice Department, the investigations never went anywhere. So I don't know that anybody would have ever raised those names. And I don't know that anybody knew to even look into it. You know, as I said, the whole question of human trafficking, sexual slavery, forced labor, domestic violence, for the longest time were not even considered crimes. And it took a lot of effort on the part of many, many courageous people around the world to raise the visibility of these crimes and to actually change criminal law in many countries. You know, when I spoke in 1995 at the UN World Conference on Women in Beijing, that was one of the issues everyone was struggling with. Domestic violence was considered cultural, not criminal. Sexual slavery was just something that happened. You know, young women were forced into prostitution. All of this was certainly known and was something that had gone on for, centuries, thousands of years. But there became finally enough outrage and organizational impetus to begin to try to change that. And that's what I worked on when I was First Lady, because I really became aware as I traveled to Asia and Africa, even Eastern Europe, particularly after the fall of the Soviet Union, what a big criminal network was operating around the world to traffic people. And obviously we're here focusing on what happened to girls and women with being sexually abused, but it's also true that people were forced into labor in mines and fishing boats. I mean, this was a phenomenon that finally was getting attention. And we worked very hard to raise visibility. I mentioned the law that was finally passed in our country in 2000. There was also something called the Palermo Protocol, where nations came together to pledge themselves to change laws, to implement enforcement against trafficking. So it's been a long struggle, but we've tried to focus on preventing it, prosecuting it, and protecting the survivors, and we've made progress. But obviously, we're here today talking about crimes that still are happening even in our own country.
I know the public wants names to be named, and I know this is a difficult question for you given your lack of a relationship with Epstein or Maxwell, but are there any names that you think we should be talking to at this point that haven't been out there already?
I don't know any more than you do as to what's being exposed in the files. I saw where Congressman Massey stood on the floor the other day and said that he named 3 people, as I recall, that should be investigated. But there's a long list of people who may, even if they did not do something themselves wrong, because of their association with Epstein, might have credible information for your committee.
And final question, you've expressed a...
It took 2 hours and 15 minutes, 16 minutes, whatever it is, but she just said something really smart. Hold on, let me pull this back. I don't want to go too far back. Listen to this part again, guys. Pay attention.
I know the public wants names to be named, and I know this is a difficult question for you given your lack of a relationship with Epstein or Maxwell, but are there any names that you think we should be talking to at this point that haven't been out there already?
I don't know any more than you do as to what's being exposed in the files. I saw where Congressman Massey stood on the floor the other day and said that he named 3 people, as I recall, that should be investigated. But there's a long list of people who may, even if they did not do something themselves wrong, because of their association with Epstein, might have credible information for your committee.
And final question, you've expressed a desire.
Now, it's kind of crazy because that's a really, really good point. That's a really good point. But because there are so many other people involved, she's also kind of just like, trying to nudge them to look in the other direction, because she knows that this thing goes so wide and that everybody else that there are so many other people involved that all they got to do is start looking in the other direction, just take the spotlight off of her and look somewhere else, and they're going to find something. And she doesn't give a fuck about any of those people. She's like, look, yeah, there's plenty there. And even if it's not the ones in the files, look at their friends. Look at who they associate with. Ask them. I'm sure they know something. Just like we're all sure that she knows something. But her whole thing is like, listen, it's everybody. You guys are putting this on me. Fuck you. I'm going to sit here and say, I don't recall, because we all know damn well that you could be putting anybody else in this chair and they could get you the information themselves. So why don't you look at them? And if you don't want to look at them, you can look at their friends, because I'm sure they know something too. Is anyone else getting that feel from me, from listening to that?
For this hearing to be public, I just love to hear sort of an explanation for why.
Look, I think sunlight is the best disinfectant. I think as much as we can do in public, we should do. And I've testified before Congress many times before you were there, and it was always in public. I mean, that's what we did. I testified, and I was on the other side of the table asking questions in public, except for something that was classified that couldn't be in public. What we did was in the sunlight, in front of the press, because people, namely our constituents, deserve to know what we are finding out, and to go along with us, with few exceptions, to understand, what the Congress is doing. So I believe for a long time, I think we should be testifying in public. And I think it would benefit this committee for people to see that you're actually doing things, and especially if you call people who have some credible information for you, that you are committed, regardless of the cover-up in the Justice Department or whatever directions the DOJ is getting from the White House, you are determined to find out the truth.
Thank you.
Yo, she's she's actually dropping some gems right now. Yeah, listen, and I give credit where credit's due. Like, like there are a lot of people in this field where they got the people they like, they got the people that they don't like. But for me, I break everything down to math. I look at everything. They're all factors in the equation. And even the people that you don't like, even the people that you disdain, that you freaking want to hate so bad, and I say want to hate because I don't think you should hate, but even the people that you can't stand, every now and then, like every dog has their day, every now and then they're going to drop a gem. Just like, the reverse happens. I mean, we've seen it with Trump. If you were a Trump supporter and you really believed that he was going to be transparent and he was going to release the files and drain the swamp and avoid the war, and then all of a sudden you see this shit that's happened the past year, you're like really disappointed. And that just goes to show you that sometimes you could have somebody that you think that you know, someone that you really believe, that you really find to be credible, that you really think is that guy that you look up to, and you know what I mean? Like you just love him. You know everything about him. It's like he's awesome. He's great. And then all of a sudden something changes and you're like, wait a second. Like, this isn't what I thought it was. Like, this isn't who you were yesterday. Like, this is like, what changed? What changed? And sometimes it is a factor in the equation that changes. And sometimes, it just takes a while to see people's true colors.
Hello, Congressman.
Secretary.
And while they're pausing, I just also want to say that's why it's so important to always be honest. And that's why I'm not always going to get everything right. I'm always going to be honest, but sometimes I'm going to get things wrong. For example, like the other day when we were covering that Wolves in Finance video, there was a part in that stream where I made a very big point and put a lot of emphasis because I believe that Frank Turek was there recording Rick Cutler. I'm like, that's what he's doing. He's there. He's recording Rick Cutler. But then later, towards the end of the stream, when I was going through my own photos, I saw an image of somebody else recording Rick Cutler that seemed like it could have been the same image, but cropped, and you see Frank Turek, or someone that looks to be Frank Turek. And I corrected myself right away. And I'm like, wow, I feel stupid. I think I got that one wrong. And I feel like that's understandable because we're all human. We're all going to make mistakes. And there's nothing wrong with making a mistake when you're willing to own it and hold yourself accountable and just, right the ship. There's nothing wrong with that. But a lot of people, like, they just, I don't know, they just want to take the lie to the grave. They want to die with the lie. And it's just not the way. It's just not the way, because especially in politics, there's this thing that it's like this fear that the second you hold yourself accountable, the second that you admit that you're wrong, that the other side is just going to take advantage and they're going to capitalize on it. And there's a little bit of truth in that. But I think that at this point in time, with everything that we've seen from everybody, that people, they just want the real. They want the accountability. It's almost like you want somebody to get something wrong and own up to it, just so that you know that you can trust them. And we're not seeing that. We're not seeing that. And I don't know. I'm never going to be that guy. I'm never going to be the guy that that always gets it right. But I'm never going to be the guy that's going to be too afraid or ashamed to admit when I get something wrong. Whether it's a piece of evidence, an image, a case, a person, whatever it is.
How are you?
I'm okay.
First and foremost, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Secondly, as an attorney, I know sometimes things are done differently in D.C., but when an agreement is made and our word is given, it should be kept.
I agree with that.
And first and foremost, to get into the line of questioning that I had, on November 12th of last year, Oversight Committee Democrats released emails that were obtained from the estate of Jeffrey Epstein. In one email from 2011, Epstein said to Ghislaine Maxwell that President Trump was, quote, that dog that hasn't barked, end of quote, and that an unnamed victim, quote, spent hours at my house with him, end of quote. In another email from 2019, Epstein wrote that, quote, of course he, referring to President Trump, knew about the girls as he asked Ghislaine to stop. 2 days later, President Trump directed Attorney General Pam Bondi to investigate President Clinton and other prominent Democrats in order to distract from his own close ties to Jeffrey Epstein. I'll mark as Minority Exhibit B a true social post from Donald Trump dated November 14th, 2025. And I think you have that now. As you can see, President Trump's post refers to Jeffrey Epstein's crimes against young girls and women as the Epstein hoax, end of quote. His post also completely ignores several other high-profile individuals, including Republicans and allies of President Trump, who are known to have had relationships with Epstein. In fact, the Epstein files contain numerous officials in the current and previous Trump administrations with connections to Jeffrey Epstein, including, but I'm not sure it's limited to, Howard Lutnick, RFK Jr., Steve Bannon, Elon Musk, Tom Barrack, Kevin Warsh, and Mehmet Oz, to name a few. Secretary Clinton, to your knowledge, has the Trump administration done anything at all to investigate these other individuals with ties to Epstein?
Congressman, I know of nothing, just reading the press. I obviously have no inside information that there has been any effort whatsoever to investigate the names that you just mentioned or any others who might have credible information about Jeffrey Epstein's crimes. And I think that's where this committee comes in. You are not beholden to the Justice Department. You have an independent Article I jurisdiction.
The gaslighting is so freaking crazy, though, because her and her husband, they're like the top of the food chain. You know what I mean? They're the top of the food chain. Like, she's sitting here saying all this stuff, hitting the table. Like, yeah, they're not doing anything. They're all these people that they can look into that know so much. It's like, yo, like, your husband was the president. You were Secretary of State. You worked with the guy. Maybe not Hillary directly, but Bill had a direct relationship with him for years. Like, we know this. Like, think about it. If he was working for the people that funded our greatest ally, and he had direct affiliations and was working in the interest of our greatest ally, and our greatest ally and us share information and share intel, who are they sharing it with that Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton wouldn't know anything? How is that possible? How is that possible? Just look at the overlap. Look at the people. Look at the other people that are in the files. Look at what they were doing at those points in time, whether it's Ehud Barak or Prince Andrew or any of the other names, Bill Gates, any of these guys. Look at what they were doing, who they were affiliated with. Jess Staley, for instance, he was one of the higher ups. Wasn't he like CEO of asset management for Chase Bank? All these different intertwining connections, all these relationships, all these fundraisers and all these different places where they're all hanging out and having these fancy, expensive dinners and fundraisers. And you're going to tell me that the former president of the United States and the Secretary of State were out of the loop, that they weren't in the know of what was going on. You're going to tell me that they don't build files about every single person walking through the door, especially at their own daughter's wedding. Like, who is going to believe this? Like, seriously, if you watch this and believe this and think that any of this is credible in any way, there is something really wrong with you. You know, and I don't mean to come off manipulative in any way or like coerce anybody's opinion or sorry if I mispronounce words from time to time. But like, you know, like I'm not trying to like string anybody along here. Like I think it's common sense. I do. I think it's common sense. And although, like I said, she made some valid points before, the reason she's making that valid point is because she's trying to get the attention off of her. Off of her. Think about it. 2016, she ran for president. She was top of the food chain.
You are the co-equal branch of government, and you have the responsibility.
Do me a favor, type a 7 if you agree.
To pursue what the Justice Department apparently is failing to pursue. The other point I would make is, having observed President Trump up close and personal for a number of years now since I ran against him, he has a tell. He has a behavioral tell. Whenever he is worried about being found out himself, he accuses somebody else of doing what he actually has done.
Yeah, Hillary, I hate to break it to you, but you got to tell too. Whenever you're full of shit, you're usually saying, I don't recall. In my personal opinion.
And it's just a pattern with him. So it's no surprise to me.
I think it's a
that
pattern
all of
with
a
you
sudden,
too.
What he promised in his campaign to reveal everything about the files, and then when his people began looking in the files and realized how potentially incriminating they were of him, all of a sudden that was no longer the focus. It was blaming Democrats, talking about a hoax, saying move on, there's nothing to see here.
Yeah, but you know why I think that was? You know why I think that was? Because I honestly believe, like, to see Trump's name in there the most, you guys got to remember something. It is also well documented that Trump, I mean, I'm pretty sure Trump ran to the feds after he had his falling out. Like, him and Epstein were like buddies, but like frenemy type buddies. Like, they were good friends, but they were also kind of rivals. And then they were bidding on the same property. And then they had a falling out. And then all of a sudden, Trump, I think, found out. Like, don't quote me word for word, but I think Trump found out that there was an investigation revolving Epstein, and that he like told the feds, like, yeah, I'm glad you're finally looking into them. Everybody knows what they were doing. You know? So if because you got to remember something. Epstein and Maxwell, they weren't working in Trump Tower. They weren't working in the casino. They weren't managing Trump's businesses, okay? They were working with the Clintons. So if at any point during the Obama administration or the Biden administration, especially the Biden administration, when Epstein didn't off himself and just disappeared, you know, and they replaced him with a guy who didn't get that prostate surgery, at any point during that administration, while everybody was distracted with COVID and all this whatnot, that I'm sure had absolutely nothing to do with the Epstein and Bill Gates simulations. But when they're working on those files, it is very, very plausible to believe that while all this Trump versus the Democrat stuff is going on, and they're prosecuting him over the clerical errors with the Stormy Daniels crap or whatever the hell that was about, it's very plausible to believe that they were cooking those books with a bunch of stuff against Trump. And listen, I cannot stand Trump right now. With all the stuff going on with Iran, I have never been more disappointed in a president. But with that said, I'm going to be objective, and I do not believe that all the stuff in the files about Trump is accurate or is true. I do 1,000% believe that the Democrats cooked those books to try to implicate Trump and put all the attention on them to cover their own asses. And I think that the Clintons' asses were the top of the list that they were trying to cover. And I don't know if that's going to be like a hot take or if that's going to be controversial to some people, but like I always say, it doesn't matter whether you like somebody, whether you dislike them. You have to be honest. The truth has to rise to the top. You cannot be one of these people that chooses to believe lies because it goes along with your narrative. Because that is like the epitome of what drives the culture war and what separates the right from the left. It's not that people can't find common ground on the differences they have. It's because they're refusing to by believing the lies and leaning the other way and not holding their own parties accountable. And that is what has happened in America. And I believe that there is no doubt in my mind that there is foreign influences that are financing and promoting that and pushing that upon us. I believe that it is forced. What we are witnessing, what we are experiencing, it is the destabilization of our own country. They are turning us against each other. And I'm trying to explain to you how they're doing it based on my own personal research. And believe me when I tell you, I have gone so deep down the rabbit hole. I've looked into so much stuff, and it's really hard keeping up with my research and learning how to do this stuff with the content and trying to like make the right content to like grow the channel. But I mean, look at this. I've been on here for 2.5 hours. 2.5 hours. I have 231 views. We got 29 people currently watching. You know, before I actually had my channel, like, remember when I was just like watching, I was just a spectator like you guys, sending supers to Ian, to Barron, to, you know, all these other guys. And I was getting the shout outs and they were saying, oh, wait till he comes out. It's going to be good. I'm going to have his back. I'm going to support him. I'm watching him. You know, that was like before I actually started talking. all of a sudden I come out and I start calling people out and I start like trying to teach people how to read between the lines like I do. And I start calling out the bullshit and I start asking questions, you know, not just with the people that are doing these things, but with the people that are covering it, saying, hey, how come you're not looking at this? Hey, how come you're not looking at that? Hey, did you see that email I sent you? Hey, like, why don't you change this with the software? Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? And then all of a sudden, I'm turning into the black sheep. All of a sudden, guys don't want to shout me out no more. You know? And I'm not trying to be too subliminal here. And the only reason I'm even saying this is because A, it's pertinent to the problems that we have in our country as a whole. And B, because I actually am reading the chat. And it's not that hard when there's only 30 of us because I'm being suppressed like crazy. But we got to ask ourselves, why am I being suppressed? And why does it feel like everybody's suppressing me? You know? But not everybody. I've had a couple people follow me or message me and like my stuff. You know, I'm not going to drop names because if there is like this big effort to suppress me, I don't want to like bring anybody down, you know. But like, I don't believe in coincidences. I don't. I think that all this stuff is happening for a reason. And I think that there are a lot of people behind the scenes in different areas, whether it's politics, whether it's influencers, whether it's the deep state, whether it's whoever, that does not want people to hear what I have to say. They do not want my opinion out there. They do not want me to be an influence. And I think we all need to ask ourselves why that is. Guys, chat, I'm reading it. Why don't you guys tell me why that is? I think it's 3 simple words.
That is a typical pattern of President Trump's behavior, which speaks louder than all the words that he speaks and all of the Truth Social posts that he makes. He clearly knows what he did. He knows what others did. Because remember, one of the emails that has come out recently is he called the police chief of Palm Beach at the time Epstein was arrested, according to reporting, to say, I'm so glad you got him. I'm so glad you're stopping him. Well, how would he know that? How would he know that? So there is so much to be uncovered here rather than being covered up. And it really, in addition to the specific information that could be gotten.
I love how she just like brought up the same point that I did, but she's trying to spin it as a way to deflect the attention away from herself. How did Trump know that? How did Trump know that? But the real question is, why didn't you know that? Or why are you pretending to tell us that you didn't know that? That's the real question. Because at that point in the early 2000s, Trump was a reality star. Trump was a reality star. You were a senator. Your husband was a former president. You were about to run for president. You were the one with the classified information. You were the one with the classified clearances. So how is there anything in the world that Trump knew about any of this that you and your husband did not know? Yo, am I just like too real for everybody? You know, like I'm not trying to like toot my own horn or anything, but am I just like too smart for them? You know, is this like what it is? Again, I just want to say, I love my life. I love my family. I love you guys. I would never, never harm myself in any way or anyone else. I am a pacifist. I am a Christian. But this is why I say we are the light. And they can only dim it for so long. But they can never put it out. They can never put it out. Because even if they fucking kill me, my content is here. You guys have seen enough, heard enough. And if anybody wants raw footage of my show, I got no problem. If any of you guys want to make accounts too, and you want to make like a social media account and help spread the word for me, you know, since other people like don't even want to say my name anymore for some reason, I got no problem. Send me the email. Send me the email. realbaseteam.com. I'll send you the straight raw files. And you guys just have a fucking ball. Do what you want with it. Because I am doing this for the right reasons.
And the accountability that could be achieved, it would restore trust. You know, the American people are not dumb. They're watching this. They're seeing this. They're following this. And it's just one more example of us not doing the kind of work
That's
that
right,
would
Hillary.
build trust
We're seeing
in
it.
finding
We're
out
following
the
it.
truth, not just for the victims and survivors, but for the American public.
I just have a couple quick questions. Howard Lutnick recently went so far as to lie about.
Oh, and also, McDougal, thank you so much for the private super. See, McDougal said that they were having problems sending me super, so they sent me a PayPal, which I think is awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I don't know if I shouted that out earlier.
His close connections with Jeffrey Epstein. But the truth came out with the release of the files. Secretary Clinton, is Howard Lutnick still employed as the Secretary of Commerce in the Trump administration?
So far as I know.
Secretary Clinton, in your opinion, why has Donald Trump ignored these other prominent figures who had close ties to Epstein?
I can't speculate on that, Congressman. I think it's a worthwhile question to ask, and I think it certainly should be asked by this committee.
And lastly, in light of everything, not just what I think was an embarrassing leak earlier, do you believe your deposition today is a good faith exercise?
I can't conclude that. I think all the information, such as it is, that I have could have been delivered in a sworn statement, could have been delivered in written interrogatories. So I'm not going to speculate about the committee's intentions here. But, a former member of this committee, someone with whom I doubt I have very much in common, Marjorie Taylor Greene, said that Trump put pressure on Bondi not to release the files. And if I recall, she was one of the votes for the Transparency Act, and she and others, including other members of this committee, were hauled into the White House and taken to the woodshed. And so I believe she may be a source of information about, her own experience, demonstrating clearly that this White House does not want the Justice Department to release the files that might in any way incriminate President Trump.
Thank you, Madam Secretary.
Thank you so much for being here, Madam Secretary. Some of this was briefly touched upon, but as you know, there is wide speculation among the public that Jeffrey Epstein may have been affiliated with domestic intelligence agencies and services. Alex Acosta, for example, Secretary of Labor in the first Trump administration, allegedly said that Epstein, quote, belonged to intelligence, end quote. We know that Acosta has denied the statement, but it nonetheless raises questions about Epstein.
See, that's the thing. I don't even want to put these people in the woodshed. I don't. You know what I want? I want them to find Jesus. I want all these people that have been worshiping Baal and doing all this horrible crap to find Jesus and try to repent. Even if they never can, even if their sins are way too big to ever truly repent, because that would be so much better for the world than just us selling our souls and doing to them what they did to others. I don't want that. I don't think that that's the best path. I don't think that that's who we want to be. I don't think that that's who we are. And that's why I always say we are the light. We expose them, and that's it. They have to walk around in shame.
Epstein, you obviously served in a variety of highly sensitive positions, allowing you to access some of our nation's most sensitive and secretive information. Either during or after your time in government, were you ever made aware of Jeffrey Epstein having any kind of relationship, directly or indirectly, with a United States intelligence agency or service like the CIA?
I was not, but obviously I served in the Senate and don't recall anything like that ever being presented. I was on the Armed Services Committee, so perhaps there might have been a mention if there was any relevance. And in the State Department, I don't recall any information like that at all.
And were you ever made aware of Ghislaine Maxwell having any kind of relationship with an intelligence agency or service
I was
in the
not.
United States? Thank you. Now, during the committee's deposition of former Attorney General Bill Barr, he indicated that, quote, many American businessmen who have foreign contacts sometimes will talk to intelligence agencies and provide information to them. Are you aware of Jeffrey Epstein having these less formal interactions with the CIA or any other domestic intelligence?
I'm not aware of any intelligence connections of Jeffrey Epstein at all.
And that applies to foreign intelligence?
Yes,
as
it
well.
does.
Okay. I want to move to...
But I do think, Congresswoman, as I said earlier, your questions are well taken. There are so many threads of this investigation that need to be followed.
But she is, like, think about it. Her husband, I don't know how many times I can say it. I don't want to keep repeating myself. But she's sitting there saying, oh, I had no idea. I had no idea. Like, remember, Ghislaine's father got made out as an agent when he died in 1991. A year before Bill Clinton became president. 1991, the late 1991, because Robert died in November. So it came out. There's a book called The Samson Option that came out in October 1991 that corroborated with other rumors and statements that Robert Maxwell was working for Mossad. That is a fact. It's not like allegation that came out. A year later, Robert died. There was different circumstances. He was buried in Israel on the Mount of Olives, despite the fact that he was born in Czech, was a British citizen. Ghislaine was actually born in France. So was all of her siblings and her mother. So it was like very odd that the allegations come out in the Samson option. Then he dies. Then he's buried in Israel. Then there's all this money missing, like $1 billion that was like the pension funds of his publishing companies. And then right after that, Ghislaine Maxwell moves in with Jeffrey Epstein. And then a year later, Mark Middleton is bringing Jeffrey Epstein into the White House, or 2 years later, to visit with Bill Clinton. So it's like anybody with any common sense is going to say that, okay, this is someone we need to look at. Like, there are direct connections there, direct recent connections. So for her to say, oh, we had no idea, I had no idea. Like, how would I know? It's like, how would you not know? You know, and this is the whole thing. Like, she's trying to talk to us like we're all children. Like, we all don't know. Like Whitney Webb never wrote a book, you know? But this is just disgraceful.
We are talking about the intelligence. We have talked about the sexual abuses. And we also should be following the money. One of my former colleagues, Senator Wyden, is trying to get out of the Treasury Department records about Jeffrey Epstein's financial transactions. The Congress should, and this committee certainly should, subpoena the Treasury Secretary for the information that Senator Wyden has compiled. In my experience in the Senate, Senator Wyden is a thoughtful, careful investigator. If he says there's something there, I would take it to the bank. And so follow the money. Follow these foreign involvement intelligence potential. Whether they're true or not, I don't know. And of course, follow whatever leads you can get out of the emails and other information that are being put forth by either DOJ or the Epstein estate or anybody else on, the crimes that he committed.
Thank you. That brings us to the issue of transparency, which is related to what you just said. You and President Clinton have been very clear about your desire to testify publicly before this committee. In fact, on February 5th, 2026, you posted on social media, quote, "If you want this fight at Rep. James Comer, let's have it in public." You love to talk about transparency. There is nothing more transparent than a public hearing, cameras on. Secretary Clinton, why is it important for you to testify before this committee in a public setting?
Well, first of all, I believe in public testimony. I believe that the public...
You know, that's actually funny. I didn't think about that. The person asking the questions does kind of sound like Erica. That's funny. Good catch, Levin.
has a right to know what its elected members of Congress are investigating and legislating. Having served for 8 years, I think it is useful as a member to do a hearing in public because you're going to learn things by the coverage of it, by the response that you get from people. This hearing, if it were in public, maybe your question about intelligence, maybe somebody watching it would have said, oh my gosh, I just remembered having a conversation with Foreign Minister X or Prime Minister Y, and that person mentioned Jeffrey Epstein. Most people are not going to look at the video, they're not going to read the transcript, but they will follow a live public hearing. So I think it actually enhances the work that those of us who've been privileged to serve are doing and can do. So to me, it is just an absolute prerequisite for doing the kind of legislative and investigative work as effectively as possible by doing it in public.
And did you know that you would be photographed today?
No.
And is that at all part of what you had understood about the terms of the agreement for today's deposition?
Well, I will confess that I had some concerns about whether the majority on the committee would treat me fairly and would, fairly convey what I say and what I did and how I looked and how I responded. So yes, I did have a concern. And when we learned about the photos being taken, not by a staff member, but by a member, it was shocking and very disappointing. So if it were in public, we wouldn't have that debate. Everybody could see the same thing that the Congresswoman saw. I'm sitting here, sometimes I'm smiling, sometimes I'm frowning, sometimes I look good, sometimes I don't. That's all in public. Everybody can have the same view rather than, an angled photo and all the rest of it. So it was disappointing, and I regret that it happened and it violated your rules. But that's not the real concern I have. The real concern is get busy. Focus on the people that have something to tell you, that can tell you about intelligence, money, and crimes, and get them before you. And whenever possible, do it in public.
And finally, do you think that Donald Trump should be deposed by this committee?
Absolutely. I was a lawyer, and as a lawyer, you would look for pattern and practice. If you were deposing a witness in a case that you were trying, if you were in court, what did you know about this person? What you knew could influence how you question that person, how you tried the case. Donald Trump has been held civilly liable for sexual assault by a jury of his peers. 9 members of a jury found him liable in the sexual assault of E. Jean Carroll. That is behavior. That fits a pattern if one were looking for a pattern. He has.
Yeah, but you see, again, like you're trying to point the finger with that on Trump, but what about everybody that had like harsher accusations about Bill? Bill got accused of the hard R by Juanita Broderick. And there were other women as well that made allegations. So it kind of feels like a straw man argument. Man, Hillary's vicious. The fact that she's willing to go that far to deflect, to get the attention off of her, knowing that it's dragging Bill through the mud. You know what I mean? Like, there's no way that she didn't think about that before she said it, right?
He's also been convicted on 34 felony counts for attempting to hide his relationship with an escort and then to commit business fraud to prevent it from becoming public in the 2016 campaign, which was ultimately election interference. So if I were running the committee or I were involved in this investigation, I would be looking for people who maybe had some prior conduct that might be relevant to either money or crimes. And yes,
But again, the both of you and Bill already have a history of prior conduct with the money and the crimes.
think that it would be in keeping with the scope of the investigation of this committee to set up a deposition with President Trump. I know he's been deposed many, many, many times. He's taken the Fifth Amendment many, many hundreds of times. So I'm not saying you're going to get a lot of information.
Yo, how many times did she say, I do not recall, I don't recall, I have no recollection? How many times? It was like 30 earlier. And now she's saying, oh, he's taking the Fifth Amendment. I never take the Fifth Amendment. Yeah, you don't take the Fifth Amendment because you fucking don't recall anything. Sorry for cursing.
Given what's in the files and given past and prior conduct, he would be on my witness list.
Thank you.
We can go off the record.
Off the record. Come on.
All right, we'll go back on the record. It is 2:49 p.m. I believe Chairman Comer has something he would like to say.
Yes. And
Day, thank you
Madam
for
Secretary.
becoming a
Appreciate what
supporting
you said
member. I
in the last
appreciate
round
you.
of questioning. I want to be very clear. This committee is taking this investigation very seriously.
Also, I want to let you guys know, you guys know I love everybody. I treat everybody the same. I try to respond to everybody. But I am going to turn this to not turn this. At 4:30, I'm going to take a break. And then at 5 o'clock, I'm going to come back on and make it members only. Because I got to do something extra for the members. I said I was going to do it, and I'm going to. And I will be on from about 5 to a little after 6, members only. But then at 10 o'clock tonight, and I'm speaking Eastern time, by the way, 10 o'clock tonight, I'm going to be back on, and it's going to be regular channel, and I got some clips that I want to share, and I got some other stuff that I want to get into. So for today, we're going to be doing the Hillary thing. I'm going to take a break in a little bit, and then, like I said, we're going to finish up the Hillary Clinton with members only, and then tonight, we're going to have some fun. We're going to have some fun. I will be on 10 o'clock Eastern time, and it's going to be a good night. It's going to be a long night. I promised you guys that I was going to be doing a lot of content this week, and I was going to come hard, and I'm going to keep my word. And advance with another gifted membership. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Seriously, we are following the money. We have a history of doing that over the past 2 years. I wrote the Treasury Department requesting suspicious activity reports related to Jeffrey Epstein. Treasury has been in full compliance, and our staff has spent untold hours reviewing those documents. I know the minority staff have also reviewed those documents. Anytime we subpoena anything, both sides get it. Based on the suspicious activity reports, I then issued subpoenas to 2 banks, Deutsche Bank and JP Morgan. Those 2 banks are also in compliance and continue to produce thousands of pages of records. And I will say this before I turn it over to Representative Mace. This investigation is very difficult.
Gifting 5 memberships, making sure more people are included. You are a rock star. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. You guys really are the best. You guys really are the best. And I swear, if this channel ever stops getting suppressed so hard and I'm able to monetize it and actually make something, I'm going to be giving back too. I promise you, I got a lot of stuff planned. Things aren't moving as quickly as I was hoping that they would at this point, but they're still moving, and I'm not going to stop.
When witnesses drag out negotiations for more than 6 months and violate their duly issued subpoena. So that's one reason when we're dealing with very powerful people that have the best attorneys out there, it's very difficult when it takes 6 months to get witnesses in. So I just wanted to mention that. I'll yield to Ms. Mays.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Madam Secretary, thank you for returning this afternoon. Secretary Clinton, is your husband someone the committee should investigate?
My husband will be here tomorrow. You'll have a chance to ask him questions.
So my question is your husband someone this committee should investigate?
Ask and answer.
Apparently you are. You've subpoenaed him. He's going to be here tomorrow.
In your testimony before the break, you discussed why you believe President Trump should testify before a committee due to a, quote, pattern of behavior, end quote. You testified that a pattern of behavior warrants accountability. So I want to make sure I understand your standard correctly. The pattern of behavior you describe includes being held civilly liable, indictments, sexually deviant behavior, correct?
Yes.
In 1998, your husband was found civilly liable for sexual misconduct with Paula Jones and settled for $850,000. Is that correct?
Yes.
By your standard of pattern of behavior, should your husband testify before this committee?
He is testifying tomorrow.
On December 19, 1998, President Clinton was impeached on charges of perjury and obstruction of justice, which directly related to his extramarital affair with Monica Lewinsky. Is that correct?
Yes.
And your husband was impeached for perjury related to sexual behavior, correct?
I didn't understand what you said.
Your husband was impeached for perjury related to sexual behavior, his sexual behavior.
He was impeached for several reasons and then was acquitted in the Senate.
And your husband flew on Jeffrey Epstein's plane 17 to 26 times, correct?
He made several trips with different legs on the trip, as I recall.
But he flew on Jeffrey Epstein's plane
Yes,
17
he
to
did.
26 times? Were you aware that Secret Service was dropped on some of those flights?
That is not my understanding.
Where they were not on some of those flights?
That is not my
So
understanding.
your understanding is that Secret Service was on all of the flights that President Clinton was on?
That is
with
my
Epstein?
understanding.
By this standard of behavior, multiple credible accusers, including Juanita Broderick, who alleged rape against your husband was disbarred in Arkansas, lost his law license before the Supreme Court, flew on Epstein's plane dozens of times, visited Epstein's island.
That is not true. That is absolutely untrue.
Well, there's documentation in the DOJ files. I'm not sure you're aware, your attorneys have told you, but Jeffrey Epstein told one of the victims to lie to investigators, to lie that Bill Clinton was ever on Epstein Island. I can provide that document to you.
We would like that document, please.
Okay.
Yeah, counsel, because actually the files say just the opposite. Epstein himself denied he was.
These are FBI notes from an interview with a victim, and I can get you the victim number and the case number and the files. These are notes from a 302 interview.
If you'd like those, are you going to provide those now?
I don't. That's not my line of questioning. She brought it up, but I have a
I'm
document.
sorry, you're making a representation as to the fact.
I didn't enter
something
anything
has
as
to-
an exhibit.
But it's factually inaccurate.
No, I can give it to you later. I can go find the document, make copies of it, and give it to you this afternoon.
Thank you so much.
Okay. By your standard of pattern of behavior, according to documents released by the Department of Justice, your husband appears in photos in swimming pools, hot tubs, aboard Jeffrey Epstein's private plane with unidentified young women. We came here today and told this committee, you told this committee that a pattern of behavior demands accountability, correct?
I said that I believe the committee should call anyone who had a substantial pattern and practice of contact with Jeffrey Epstein and his crimes before they came to light.
Does that include your husband?
And after they came to light. You're going to have a chance to question him tomorrow.
So I'll ask you again, by the standard you just set in your own words just now, does this standard apply equally to your husband or only President Trump?
I have said that my husband has been subpoenaed. He will appear. He will answer your questions to the best.
Yo, she's deflecting so hard. No shit. Everybody knows that Bill's going to be getting questioned too. What she's saying is that based on your own statements, your own beliefs, your opinions, your values, everything that you have said, in your opinion, Hillary, should your husband Bill be questioned based on his previous behavior? That's the question. Accountability starts at the top and it trickles down. You're just trying to pass the buck like everybody else.
Of his ability, but there is no evidence whatsoever of any connection with Jeffrey Epstein's crimes, and I think that will be obviously apparent in the questioning.
What makes you so sure of that then? I mean, he's photographed with...
Objection is to speculate on something that's not.
Yeah, it is so speculative.
Facts.
I mean, swimming in a pool, sitting in a hot tub, there are millions of people who do that without any improper behavior or certainly committing any crimes. So I
Do you think most of the
men
men are like your husband that did anything wrong? Why were they being surrounded by young women, giving them massages on Jeffrey's private estate or private plane? Are they all innocent then?
You know,
Just
you
because-
are making assumptions in your questions that have not been proven and I don't believe are provable.
Guys, if anybody's interested in helping me spread the word, you know, because apparently people are getting upset when you guys take it upon yourselves to go talk to, you know, put my name in other chats, the base is base thing. I'm not trying to ruffle feathers. I don't want to, you know, have problems with you guys, with the people you enjoy, or especially people that I enjoy watching. Like that whole situation is crazy. But, maybe we can go another route. If anybody is interested in helping and making like a fan page on like a social media, Instagram, I don't think we should deal with TikTok, but in X and Instagram or Facebook or whatever, let me know in the email and I will send you a ton of raw footage and you guys can just edit it on CapCut, whatever, and just go nuts. Maybe that's the way to do it.
Okay, why did you wait 6 months to have this hearing today or have this testimony?
I've answered that. I thought that given the way that other witnesses who were subpoenaed at the same time were being treated, that there was an unfair treatment of both my husband and myself.
I'm pretty sure that the gift membership goes to the people that are watching while you send it. I'm pretty positive on that.
And I thought that, especially from my perspective, I had very little, if any, information to provide you, and that I could have done it in a sworn statement, and you could have moved on to depose somebody else who might have more information that would be beneficial to your
I have two more
investigation.
questions, then we're going to pass it to Congresswoman Luna. After Jeffrey Epstein was convicted, did it concern you at all that you had taken a substantial amount of money from Jeffrey Epstein?
That's an inappropriate assumption. I did not take a substantial amount of money from Jeffrey Epstein. So far as I know, Jeffrey Epstein contributed to the joint committee that was supporting my Senate race.
Which was how much?
I believe I was told $20,000.
And you don't consider $20,000 substantial?
I do not consider it relevant to me because I have no recollection that I ever knew that he gave any money to
So
the
you
joint
didn't talk to
committee.
your donors that gave $20,000 to your campaign?
My understanding of the rules back then is that there was no coordination between the committee and the campaign. So, no, I have no recollection.
But that doesn't
of
mean you
doing
can't speak to your donors. That doesn't prohibit, the law does not prohibit you.
Hey,
But
thank you
I
for
didn't know he was
becoming a
donor.
member.
As far as I knew, he was not a donor until I learned this in
Did it
preparation
concern you
for
at
the
all that Ghislaine
testimony.
Maxwell was heavily involved with people you knew and were close to?
I knew people that I knew her. Yes, that's true.
And you just shrugged, you didn't want to look into it or
Yeah,
have any
nobody,
question about it?
until her crimes were revealed and she was indicted and tried and convicted, I don't think people knew very much about at all
And
what
then
she
how do
was
you know
doing.
Howard Lutnick?
I know Howard Lutnick because when I was senator on 9/11, the firm he headed, Cantor Fitzgerald, suffered the greatest loss of life. As I recall, something like 650 of his employees were murdered by terrorists that day.
I want to know if they had life insurance policies. Could you imagine that?
Howard Lutnick missed being a victim because he was delayed dropping
know
his
that. I
child
asked
off
him.
to
Yeah.
kindergarten. You asked the question. I'm going to answer your question.
Now you're gonna yell
This
at
was
me?
what I spent
You're
my
going to yell at
time
me.
doing.
I'm a
I
survivor
spent
trying to look out for other
well,
survivors trying to
and
protect
I
them.
was taking care
You
of
waited
the
6
people
months
who
to get
lost
here today.
3,000
6 months,
lives
and now you're being
at World
defiant
Trade
and
Center.
indignant today.
You asked me
I
about
have met
Howard
with Epstein
Lutnick.
survivors. I'm a survivor myself. You have emails. You've denied that Jeffrey Epstein, that you tried to get Jeffrey Epstein to give money to you.
I did
but
not.
Howard Lutnick was
If you
used
have
to
an
get
email
money.
with me asking Jeffrey
I
Epstein
have
for
an
money,
email from Howard Lutnick sending it to Jeffrey Epstein and his people to raise money for
I don't
you
know
for
about-
an event, an intimate event for you at his offices
Well,
at Cantor Fitzgerald. You're
look,
going to sit here
if you-
today
if you would
and,
let me
and,
finish.
obfuscate and say to this committee, you didn't try to get money from Jeffrey
I
Epstein
didn't.
when
I
there was an
didn't.
intimate event in an email that Howard Lutnick emailed to Epstein's people and Epstein to get him to come to your intimate event at Cantor Fitzgerald, a very small event. And so I'm not going to put. You want to yell at me? That's fine, but I'll yell right back.
Well,
okay? I am looking out for
it's
survivors.
very-
I'm doing
look-
the job that you would not do and refuse to do as Secretary of State. Thank you, and I yield back to
No,
Congresswoman.
I'm going to finish answering the question, which I have a right to do. I am very sympathetic to your personal situation. I have read about it. I have seen
Hillary
you
just got
testify or
chewed.
speak on the floor about it. And I very much sympathize with not only what you went through, but appreciate your effort to stand up for survivors. I was a senator representing the people who were murdered on 9/11. Nobody lost more people than Howard Lutnick. You can say whatever you want. You can call him and have him appear before the
You know what? If that's true, if nobody lost more people than Howard Lutnick, then why are there all these videos about him and all these pictures of him smiling? Like, there is a lot of reason to believe that J.E. and Ghislaine had some sort of involvement with that day. Howard Lutnick was J.E.'s next door neighbor. The same administration right now that has been covering all this up, and it's like pulling teeth just to get any of the files released, even with all the redactions. Howard Lutnick is a member of he is a part of that administration. Yes or no? The level of gaslighting here, it's astonishing. It's astonishing. And let's not forget that the only reason well, not the only reason, but one of the reasons why that day was only ever able to happen to begin with was because of destabilization and miscommunications that were going on between the CIA and the FBI under the Clinton administration. It was under Clinton's administration. And John O'Neill, who was working for the FBI, spent years trying to warn about it, that there would be some sort of attack. And then in August of 2001, John O'Neill got pushed out of the FBI. But, it was okay. He had some friends. They landed him a cushy job. You know what that job was? Security in the World Trade Center. And he died that day trying to save people. And we all know that the narrative there is bullshit. We know. There is enough evidence. There have been enough bodies dropped along the way. Not to mention the magic passport. They can't find the black box. So many things that they can't find from that day, but they found a passport. Get the fuck out of here. And that's why with Howard Lutnick, it's like, oh, nobody lost more than him. I mean, that would be a pretty good cover. Just saying. We thought Larry Silverstein lost a lot too until we found out about all the asbestos. And then the $4 billion insurance claim or settlement or whatever that he got. He collected $4 billion. $4 billion is like the same amount that went to all the survivors over the years after years of like pulling teeth and trying to get money for the families. I'm sorry, not the survivors, the victims, the 3,000 people that were murdered on that day. All those families combined. I think the compensation, and not just for the people that died then, but the people that got sick. I think all of the victims in any kind of capacity. I saw a thing. I got to double check. Don't quote me. But I'm pretty sure it added up to about $4 billion. And I only know this because they were making the comparison that all the victims, all the money that was given to them in response for their pain and suffering was the same amount that Larry Silverstein got in insurance for buildings that were not worth anywhere near that because of the amount of asbestos. So, I mean, and this is a whole other subject. This is a whole other topic. I don't want to make it about that. I only went into this because I am very passionate about it. Growing up in New York, I was 12 years old. I remember exactly where I was. 5th grade, Mrs. Olson's science class. I sat next to a kid that lost his father. My mom freaking picked me up from school, and she was complete panic. Complete panicking. The whole thing is just... I don't know.
The committee. But I knew him as the man who lost the employees that he knew intimately, including his brother.
And he was
so I worked.
You and Jeffrey Epstein raising money for you.
Let her finish her answer.
You know what? If you don't want to hear what emotionally affected me, that's fine. But that's why I know Howard Lutnick. I went to
I'm still in New York. Always New York.
the memorial service every 9/11 after the formal service was held.
I see what you're doing
with
here.
all,
You're
with
obfuscating
all
from
of
the
his
questions. He was
people, the
go-between
families.
between you and Jeffrey Epstein raising money for
Well,
your
you know, Howard Lutnick and I did work
Thank you. I will
together
now yield
because
to
we had a lot of
Congresswoman.
victims
Thank
to take care of, and we worked together to rebuild downtown Manhattan. That is how I know Howard Lutnick.
Why don't you want to get over here?
Fine, I'll do the heavy lifting.
Or you can like it later.
Yeah, I got it.
will move on. Yeah, you do love it. Yeah. Ms. Luna.
Secretary Clinton, thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Congresswoman.
President Clinton has stated that he severed ties with Epstein around 2005, prior to 2008 conviction. Were you involved or informed of any communication, emails, calls, or meetings related to distancing the foundation and or your family after those 2008 convictions?
I was not.
You had mentioned that this committee had avoided calling people to testify who should be sitting here. I would like to show you some emails. If the staff could please pass out to the members
I was
and the
12.
secretary, EFTA 00878421.
I'm 37
and
now.
EFTA 007058660, please, so she can see it.
This will be exhibit 14 and 15 for the majority.
I'll wait till you get them so you can see them.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay. Yes, we want. There's two. Are there two separate?
Yes.
Thank you. And now I'm going to pass them down because I have more from my colleague. And one more. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. There's two different documents.
There's two, yeah, there are two emails, both different EFTAs. Secretary Clinton, would you please read EFTA 007058660? Just, you don't have to read from, it's to Jeffrey Epstein, but can you read the context of the email?
Sir, could you state the number again? Is the number at the
Yes,
bottom?
it's at the bottom. It's EFTA 0070580.
This is majority, 14.
14, yes, sir.
Thank you for a fun night. Your littlest girl was a little naughty.
How does that make you feel?
Makes me sick.
If you can also read the EFTA 008788421. This is also another email. Can you just please provide the context? It's an email to Jeffrey Epstein. If you could just read the context of what it is.
Of course, the Jesus, Ohio
Jesus.
Jesus, I'm coming trick.
And just the main body of the context of the email.
Said that she felt God's presence next to her when she was in bed. She knows that Jesus watches over her and he helped save her life. Whoops.
How does that make you feel?
It's bizarre. I don't know what it means.
The reason I asked you to read both of these is because these emails were both sent by co-conspirators that were then given the plea deals and now have been given victim status. Both of these women were also named an FBI document, and they're on a number of other emails. Do you believe that the Department of Justice should reevaluate the plea deals for some of these women, given that, as you can see, they have clearly done some things probably that they shouldn't have?
I don't know the status of whether that would be legally possible, so I have no opinion.
I think outside of the statute of limitations, they might be able to reinvestigate under the civil rights violations. Would you be in favor of that, or looking into any of the co-conspirators that were given plea deals down to victim status if there's credible evidence that they were trafficking young girls?
I think it should be pursued.
I'd like to also show you another EFTA. If the staff can also pass this to the secretary. It's EFTA 016562217.
So the exhibit 16 for the majority.
And I'd also like to reflect on those previous EFTAs. The EFTA 007058660, that was actually sent by a woman by the name of Susan Hamlin. And then the other EFTA 0087841 was sent by a woman named Nadia, who's also listed in other files as well.
Is it single pages? Oh, sorry.
Secretary Clinton, this was actually out of an FBI briefing document when Epstein was in his New York trial. If you can look at the top left, the individual photo, who is that individual?
I can't tell. It's such a small, blurry picture.
Okay. For those that want to pull up the file, the photos of Jeffrey Epstein, this is actually a passport that was given. The individual's name is Marcus Robert Fortinelli. Do you think that this is a sign or a telltale sign of intelligence operations and pseudonyms?
I can't speculate. I don't know.
Okay.
She was Secretary of State. You can't even give a probability. You can't say maybe. You're just going to say, I don't know. Really? It's like, how does she live with herself? You know, could you imagine?
Victims have stated to this committee, both Democrats and Republicans, that during Epstein's time, during his day camp trial is what I'll call it, that he was also in active communication with Bush's CIA director. They also had stated that he had active ties to Russia, Israel, and Iran. Given your status, not just as a First Lady, but also in your secretary position, have you ever been targeted by any of these countries as a means of a foreign intelligence gathering operation? Are you aware of potential vulnerabilities?
Yeah, I was targeted by Russia in the 2016 campaign. I mean, I think that's pretty well known.
What about Israel or Iran?
I don't know about either Israel or Iran.
Didn't it just come out that the whole Russian dossier thing was bull, and that it wasn't Tulsi Gabbard doing like an investigation saying that her Obama may have been involved, and that Marco Rubio may have played a role as well? I don't know. I never dug too deep into that whole dossier thing, but I'm pretty sure.
Okay, do you believe that Epstein was running potentially a honeypot operation with intelligence gathering operations to collect information on high-profile individuals, both Democrat, Republican, the United States, in an effort to sway our foreign policies? Is it possible?
I have no direct knowledge, but I think it's one of the areas your committee should investigate.
Do you think it's possible?
Well, it's certainly possible. It's a tried and true technique of certain intelligence agencies.
Do you believe that he was using honeypots in an effort to...
I can't speculate. I don't know.
Okay, and on the topic of transparency, Secretary, were you ever denied access, or did you ever inquire on the topic of UAP or Gilgamesh in your official or personal capacity? Why?
I was never denied access because I never asked for access.
Okay. In the efforts of having a transparent government and restoring faith within our country, do you believe that the American people deserve access to those topics?
I do. Subject to any national security implications, I think the information should be made available. I think that's been ordered, or at least I read that it had been ordered.
And lastly, before I yield my time, Chairman Comer, do you believe that you were personally a target of an intelligence gathering operation specifically pertaining to Ghislaine Maxwell or Jeffrey Epstein?
I have no reason to believe that. I don't have any information.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. I yield my time.
Thank you. Representative Fallon. Yeah. Can you be put on? No, just, okay, all right, good.
Hi. Could you identify yourself? I'm
Yes,
sorry.
sure. Pat Fallon, 4th District of Texas.
Fallon, okay.
Native of Massachusetts, but no one would vote for me there. I moved to Texas. So Matt, I'm a pretty simple guy. I just want to keep things simple and just ask you some questions, give you a chance to respond. So July 25th, unanimous oversight subcommittee voted to subpoena yourself and your husband. On the 25th of August, Chairman Comer issued a lawful subpoena, which I would think it's fair to say you didn't cooperate. There was a lot of delays. It was August. We're now in February. The deposition was set in December, then it was delayed and moved to January, and now here we are in February. We all get accused of things. The higher you go up in the ladder, the more people are accusing things. If I don't have anything to hide, I'm eager to come in and testify. I just find that interesting. Why the delay for 6 months?
Well, I think, as I've said, we negotiated in good faith, and I believe the committee negotiated in good faith for a while because we thought, at least I'll speak for myself, that I could provide whatever information I had, which was not much, in the same form that you accepted it from former attorneys general and FBI directors who had much more direct knowledge, or could have had much more direct knowledge about the investigation you were conducting. And I found it bewildering that I couldn't provide what I knew in writing under penalty of perjury, as others had done.
Okay. I'd say better late than never, so I'm glad you are here. On the in September 22, ABC program The View had you as a guest, and you were quoted as saying, "No one is above the law." Still agree with that?
I agree with that.
As do I. I think Senator Clinton, that's why you're here.
I absolutely agree with that.
When did you first meet Jeffrey Epstein?
I never met Jeffrey
Epstein.
Yo,
Okay.
you see how quick she say that? When did you first meet Jeffrey Epstein? I never met Jeffrey Epstein. Yo, she is going. This is what I mean about dying on the hill. You know what I mean? Like, die with the lie. Like, she's like, never. Like, get it out of your head. Never met him. Don't know the guy. Don't know why he was working. Why he was affiliated with my organization. You know? Anything regarding my husband, ask him. Like, yo, she's got balls. You gotta hand her that. She's got balls. She's got balls. She doesn't have any integrity, you know? Like, I don't think she has a soul, but she has balls.
Ghislaine Maxwell.
I have no recollection of when I first
So
met
you
her.
might have met her, but you don't remember.
I do not.
Okay. So you obviously describe your relationship as pretty much non-existent with both of them.
Yeah, I had at least a casual acquaintance with her. I had
her,
nothing
okay.
with him.
Okay. Would you describe your husband's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein as limited, cordial, close?
Limited for a limited period of time with respect to using his airplane.
Okay. And how about your husband's relationship with Ms. Maxwell?
I think that they knew each other for a longer period of time.
Okay. So just for the record, in 1992, Epstein donated $1,000 to your husband's presidential campaign. In 93, $10,000 to the White House Historical Association while you were in the White House and your husband were. And then he visited the White House, as we've said, I think ad nauseum, 17 times from 93 to 95. And then in 99, a $20,000 donation to a Senate campaign or an affiliate allied campaign. And then in 2006, $25,000 to the Clinton Foundation. And then post-Clinton presidency, your husband was on the plane somewhere in the neighborhood of 26 times. Right?
I can't vouch for everything you just said. I can't vouch for.
All right, but you're not disputing it vehemently. So
No, I'm not accepting it, but
Okay.
I can't vouch for it. I can't
Okay.
respond to it.
Okay. All right. In 2008, Jeffrey Epstein was
incredible.
convicted of 2 felony counts. Correct?
Were they felonies? I don't recall.
They were federal felonies, yeah.
Were they felonies?
They're state felonies.
State felonies. Okay.
Felonies nonetheless. Okay. So just bear with me on this because, again, give you a chance to respond. Your husband ran for governor 5 times. The last time in 90 or 86, I think he got almost 500,000 votes. In 92, he got 45 million votes, 47 million in 96. When you ran in 08, you got nearly 20 million in the primary. And he was governor, you were senator, secretary of state, he was president. You've met hundreds of thousands of people, probably way more than the average typical person would. And my point here is all these millions of people that supported you and your husband, hundreds of thousands that you met. In 2010, one of the most significant events of your life is going to be your only daughter's wedding. You have 500 wedding guests from all reports. That means, and there's a groom involved, so you're distilling down to 250. Only 250 people can attend. And it's your testimony that, how did Ms. Maxwell end up at the wedding?
She was the guest of Ted Waite, who was a longtime friend of our family.
So it was just an odd coincidence that she was at one of the most, no, I mean, that's fine. If that's your testimony, that's your testimony.
I was not telling my dates who their guests could, or my guests who their dates could
It's
be.
just an odd coincidence. Okay. See, would you describe your husband as a smart guy?
I don't know about you, but I'm not saying coincidences are impossible. Because I always say I don't believe in coincidences. I'm not saying I don't believe they're possible. It's just the majority of the time there's a coincidence. I have questions. And when you go into that whole thing, which we've been talking about, we have answers, and her answer does not make sense.
Excuse me, are you asking her to testify about her husband?
not.
Instead of, 'cause he's going to be here tomorrow, so you can ask questions to the witness that is for her, but it seems to me that you are asking questions that
Counselor.
are requiring opinion. Can you ask a question that is?
How long have you been married? Can I ask that?
Oh, do I have to answer that? 50 years.
He's a pretty smart guy by all accounts. Would you agree with that? Highly intelligent. I think he is. I didn't vote for him,
Well,
but I think he
then
is.
I will.
We're going to agree on
with
that?
your
I mean, I don't
opinion.
think that's controversial, Counselor, because everybody that I've ever met that has met your husband and has firsthand experience describes him as the smartest guy in the room when you're in the room. Very smart, scary recall. Like if he meets you 20 years later, he remembers what you wore, what they were saying, which is a great tool and asset when you're a politician. I don't think that's so. With this great recall, I'm sure it served him well in his political career. So, I just find it surprising that on January 26th, you all sent a joint letter from you and him where he asserted that he, quote, didn't recall encountering Mr. Epstein or any specific interactions with him while in office.
That was his recollection.
Okay. But even though we've established that he was in the White House, Epstein, I'm talking about 17 times, and there's a public report that there were personal tours given, not only the White House, but even the residence, and somebody that smart just happened not to remember any of it.
This witness can answer questions about her own declaration, about what she recalls.
They're
from
getting
you.
mad.
Again, the president is going to be here tomorrow.
Make
All right,
it
well,
too much sense.
Your client talked about patterns in practice. And Bill Clinton, her husband, said that he doesn't remember meeting Epstein during his time in office, took trips with him or took trips on his plane to New York, England, Japan, China, Singapore, Bangkok, Brunei, Rwanda, Mozambique, South Africa, France, Norway, and many more. So it's really not a question of where they went together, but where they didn't go together. Do you know the colloquial name for Little St. James Island?
No.
It's Epstein Island. Okay, I'll refer to it in both contexts. To your knowledge, did your husband ever visit Little St. James Island?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. Do you know who Doug Band is?
He worked for my husband, yes.
So, by reports on the press, he was a key architect of the Bill Clinton post-presidency, a top aide, the body man, the fixer, counselor, and close advisor. Would you disagree with any of those?
He worked for him in a number of capacities.
About 10 years, 02 to 12, I think it was.
He worked for him. I
Decade,
don't know. I
fair
can't
to
answer
say,
that.
give or take a decade? Okay. He's on the record as asserting that Mr. Clinton did indeed visit Epstein Island. Do you think he's lying?
Yes.
Okay, why would he lie?
I don't know. You'd have to ask him.
Okay. And then, Virginia, have you heard of Virginia? I'm sure you didn't meet her, but have you heard of Virginia Giuffre?
I've heard about her in
She was
the press
I didn't
coverage.
ever meet her.
Yeah.
She was a victim of Epstein. Tragically, she didn't survive. She's no longer with us. She testified under oath that she saw Mr. Clinton on Epstein Island 2 separate occasions. You think she's lying? Or at least
I have
inaccurate?
no information whatsoever that he was ever on the
Just
island.
just trying to be fair. Why do you think that is? I mean, that's my.
I'm not
question.
going to offer opinions.
All
I
right, that's
don't
fair.
have any
Okay.
information.
Further to your point earlier about practices and patterns, now there's a third person, Steve Scully. Have you ever heard of him?
Who?
Steve Scully.
Steve Scully?
Yes.
I know of a Steve Scully who was at Apple.
He was an IT contractor on the infamous aforementioned island. He also asserts that he saw Mr. Clinton, and this is a quote from him, lounging around the porch area of Little St. James Villa. It's just oddly specific. Do you think this third person was lying as well?
I don't know information about
You'd
Mr.
see how
Scully.
that would, I wanted to ask you that because I find that odd. It's a pattern in practice, as you mentioned. Have you ever visited Epstein Island or Little St. James Island?
No.
Okay, so just to be clear, it is your testimony that, for instance, you never flew in a private plane, flew into St. Thomas Airport, and then didn't enter the terminal, but instead boarded a helicopter to Little St. James Island. You never did that.
I did not.
Okay.
Guys, for those of you that don't know, I'm sure most of you probably do by now. Epstein had a helicopter, and Ghislaine had a license to fly a helicopter. So it's not even like they had to hire somebody. Like Ghislaine literally flew the helicopter. And, when you board a plane, there are laws. Like you're supposed to have flight logs. You have to keep a log of the time, the flight, you're going to airport, who's on the plane. Those rules don't apply to helicopters. Just wanted to point that out.
So Virginia Giuffre, who we just talked about, who we all found highly credible, I think, bipartisan, but in a bipartisan manner, stated that Mr. Clinton walked into Vanity Fair and threatened them, and that they better not write an expose detailing the crimes of, quote, his good friend Jeffrey Epstein. Do you find that troubling at all?
I find it not believable.
Okay. Let's turn to the current administration and president, because you said some pretty choice words of the administration and President Trump, aggressive, and even some couple with incendiary claims about President Trump and his DOJ. You fair to say that you would not describe them as transparent?
I would not describe him as transparent.
Okay. How about you were an enthusiastic supporter of Joe Biden and Vice President Harris when each of them respectively ran for president?
I was.
Okay. Would you describe the Biden-Harris administration as an administration that was committed to transparency?
To the best of their ability.
Okay. You also asserted, and if I get this wrong, please let me know, that, or at least insinuated that President Trump was closer to Epstein than your husband. socially.
I think there's an enormous amount of evidence that goes back many, many years demonstrating their relationship.
Okay. Do you know how many times Jeffrey Epstein visited the Trump 45 White House?
I do not know.
By all accounts and evidence, 0. And how many times did he visit the Clinton White House?
I don't know.
It was 17 times. How much did Jeffrey Epstein ever donate to Donald Trump politically?
I have no idea.
There was 0. But we have established that he donated to either you or your husband or your committees 21 grand. Not to agree?
I have no information that is personally based about their relationship.
Jeffrey Epstein donated $35,000 to foundations. One was a $10,000 donation to the White House Historical Society in '93 when the Clintons, your family, was in the White House. He donated, and then there was that 2006 donation for 2006 donation to the Clinton Foundation. He's donated similar to the Trump White House. Never, no foundations either. How many pages of the Epstein files were released by the Oversight Committee in 2021 to 23 when the Democrats were in the majority?
I have no idea.
It was 0.
But there was also an ongoing investigation of, I believe, Ghislaine Maxwell during that time period.
So the answer is I can share with you was 0. How many pages did the Biden Department of Justice release from the Epstein files from 21 to 25?
I have no personal information. I have read that because of the trial of Ghislaine Maxwell, that was not done, but I have no personal information.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that was 0, and that ended quite a little bit ago now. There were.
All right, guys. It is 4:30. Yo, we've been going for almost 3.5 hours. This is almost 3.5 hours. How much time is left in this thing? All right. It says about an hour and a half, but I have it sped up. So like an hour and a half, it's closer to about an hour. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little break. I'm going to go stretch my legs a little bit, grab a snack. I will put up, you know what? I'll list the stream now so that the stream will be ready, and it will start in about a half hour. 40 minutes. So it's 4:30 p.m. my time. So figure like between 5 and 5:10. It's going to be members only. We're going to finish this deposition of Hillary, and then I'm going to do a little Q&A. I'll spend some time, hang out. You guys ask questions. You could ask about this. You could ask about other things, whatever's on your mind. And, we'll do that for a little bit. And then, like I said, I got somewhere I got to be tonight. But as soon as I get back, I will be on 10 p.m. So you're getting a lot of me today. So let me go take my break. I'll get this thumbnail ready real quick before I do. And I'll see you guys in about a half hour, 40 minutes.